We all think we know what chaos looks like, but then there's Dodd Campbell. To his mates, he's just a clueless F-stat nobody. To every assassin, villainous, and final boss-level baddie, he's a walking disaster they can't resist. His stats are awful, his banana's small, his chances of surviving are even worse, and somehow the universe decided every crazy hot world-ending villain girl, yeah, slide into his DM. One thing's for sure. If you think surviving this world will be easy, you clearly haven't met Dodd Campbell. Dodd knows one bad choice can derail history, and he knows he's already made plenty. So when fate starts moving again, he feels it before it happens. Right on cue, someone starts pounding on his dorm door like they want it gone. Out of nowhere, a shrill voice confirms his worst fear. She knows he's inside, knows his schedule, and even asked the dorm manager. Dodd ignores her. That was a mistake. A knife suddenly stabs straight through the door. The door breaks and Elner steps inside, calm, beautiful, and terrifying. She tells him he has avoided her 32 times, and she counted. She closes the distance, her heel tapping like a countdown. Then she asks him if he wants to marry her. Hearing this, Dodd's mind shuts down. Before he can respond, Princess Syrah appears at the window, lounging like this is entertainment. She mocks Elnor for targeting someone already claimed. Then suddenly, the roof collapses. Lilu crashes in, full of strength and energy, announcing that the wedding is already decided. Dodd looks like he might faint. At that moment, chains whip through the air as Uriah steps forward, her killing intent filling the room. After that, the flames swirl as Fainal descends on a broomstick, claiming him like loot. Eventually, the room becomes a standoff. 5 women, all serious, all focused on him. Dodd stands frozen, pale, unable to move. After a while, tension break. They move to attack each other. Dodd is stuck in the middle, overwhelmed. This was supposed to be a normal life. Dodd Campbell remembered Savior Rising clearly. He had cleared it, seen the ending, and closed the game satisfied. The next morning, he woke up inside it. He wasn't cursed. He hadn't angered anyone. Yet, he had become Dodd Campbell, a powerless Viscount's son. The Campbell domain was purely agricultural, no dungeons, no monsters. That was why a Viscount's son entering the Royal Academy shocked the Empire. His father stood quietly, telling him to stay healthy and avoid trouble at Alfonte. Dude agreed easily. Drawing attention was the last thing he wanted. The system activated. All stats were F. No skills, no talents, no gifts. The main quest appeared. Enroll or face game over. The academy would soon fall into chaos due to a villain. Dude reassured his father, I don't do anything to this is harmful for his survival. Then the scene shifts, and academy life is about to start now. Inside the carriage, Elner Tristan sat across from him, the final boss of this world. She looked up from her book and asked if he felt unwell. Dud forced a smile and answered politely. She explained her seating choice was intentional, meant to appear approachable. Her calm tone felt different from what he remembered. When he stayed silent, she questioned him. He awkwardly admitted she seemed kinder than expected. She asked if he had heard bad rumors about her, even wondered if they had met before. Dud denied it, calling her strict instead. She called him strange. He accepted it quietly and decided not to get involved. Then the mountains shook. Before he could retreat into silence, a burning boulder flew toward the carriage. Dodd recognized her and said student council. Then Dud instinctively moved to shield her. Suddenly, the impact threw them together, plunging everything into darkness. Thanks to her skill in recognizing and crafting armor for adult skeletons, Elner always kept them close. And she asked if he was hurt. He said he couldn't move. He apologized. She thanked him instead, saying he had saved her. She asked his name. After hesitating, he answered. He recalled his name, Dodd Campbell. She repeated it once and promised repayment. Then, the system activated and skills unlocked. Desperate survival, deadly charm. Then, scene shifts. Dud saw the carriage crushed under a boulder while groaning in pain, but noting casualties were minimal. The train resumed toward the city gates and the system announced Fate Attraction. Sitting in the ambulance, he studied his skills. A healer checked his mental state, which he confirmed was fine, as the carriage carried him toward the academy. Upon arrival, he barely heard speeches while replaying the healer's advice. A senior warned him to avoid Elner Tristan to evade danger. The system flagged low favorability and an early trust event. Suddenly, a hostile student mocked him for last place in sparring, triggering an auto-assigned combat test. Looking up, he realized his opponent was Elia, the world's greatest genius and future savior, whose cheerful presence made him weak at the knees. Elia reached down from the stone platform and offered her hand. Dodd's face went dark, tears forming as he wondered if this was the end. Voices echoed from inside the room taking attendance. Count Crichton and Count Galantier had arrived. A girl, annoyed, wondered why she was late to the enrollment duel. A young man asked about Miss Tristan's arrival, but before he finished, Elnor entered, clothes stained with blood, and slammed her sword into the central table. The girl calmly asked where she had been. Elnor replied she had been dealing with something urgent and apologized for being late. The girl accepted it, without surprise. Under the full moon, they spoke quietly. Elnor revealed that only about a dozen people died. Assassins had tried to drop a boulder on the Academy ship. She found them and killed them. Alphonte scolded her, saying she should have let the Academy handle it. Elnor snapped back, asking if she expected her to be perfect and forgiving. Alphonte tried to change the subject, reminding her to change clothes before the duel as she would see the rare genius, Crixinax, and Dodd. Elnor checked the file and recognized Dodd's name, smiling slightly at the memory of him in the carriage. The crowd below jeered, betting on how long the rustic fighter could survive. Dodd stood shaking sword in hand, realizing his stats were weak and a hit would kill him. But he saw an opportunity. Surviving could attract the villain's attention. The system announced the desperate survival skill. Dodd guessed the villains he'd face were likely in the crowd, and if he survived, he could draw them in. Elia called out to him, and he reacted with confusion. She told him to be honest, then accused him of being weak. Dodd was shocked. She said she planned to beat him up to vent her anger because he reminded her of Miss Tristan, whom she hated. Dodd explained he only rode with her by chance. Elia pointed her sword at him, saying he still reminded her of Tristan and she wanted to fight. Dodd suggested she use full strength, hoping to attract attention quickly. Elia widened her eyes, shocked, and asked if he was serious. Dodd lied, saying he was as serious as her hatred. The system activated the deadly charm skill, increasing the villain's attraction to him. Elia sneered and attacked, breaking the tip of his sword with a powerful strike. Dodd dodged, surprising everyone. Elnor commented that he wasn't useless and said she'd speed up. Dodd's face turned pale. The system warned of danger, and the desperate survival skill activated at EX level. Dodd's hand moved on its own, punching Elia in the face with immense power. Blue light surrounded him as everyone watched in shock. The punch sent her flying into the stands. Dodd stood frozen, stunned. The audience couldn't believe it. On his first day at Alphonte Academy, Dodd had defeated the main protagonist. In a building, an analytical voice discussed two possibilities. He was either a fraud using a forbidden method or a true genius. Conrad believed the blow was real. Atalanta worried the Calivan Lord would react, but suggested waiting to see if he was special, because the Academy would lose if they ignored him. News spread quickly. The world turned its attention to Dodd, wondering who he was. The headline called him the new star who defeated the Calivan commander. Dodd held the report in frustration, cursing the ridiculous articles. The system updated his profile and showed that Elnor's curiosity level rose, giving him rewards. He gained the Tristan swordsmanship trait and thought it was a good deal, despite the family's demon connections. The system also showed that Elliot Crixinax had curiosity level 4, but no rewards. Dodd wondered why she was on the list, since she wasn't a villain and had no interest in him. A knock sounded at the door. Someone called for Dodd. The voice felt familiar. Elia, bruised and looking pitiful, asked to enter. Dodd was stunned and hoped she would leave if he stayed silent. She threatened to break the door down if he didn't respond. Dodd panicked, asking if she was crazy. Elia confirmed he was inside and demanded he open the door, saying she had something to tell him. Dodd asked what it was. Elia leaned against the door and said it was to help them understand each other better. Dodd was left bewildered, thinking, what the hell is going on? Elia stared down the long corridor lit by warm yellow lights, frowning as she looked around. She turned away in annoyance, muttering that he should just go along with things and wondering why he was so stubborn. She remembered being dragged away and shouting, "Can't you just be friends with me?" Now, she was sulking but also curious. She sighed, thinking she didn't know how to make friends with a man. Lost in thought, she walked without looking and collided with someone, dropping a small bag. The person scolded her for not watching where she was going. Elia looked up and saw Elnor, and instantly froze. They stood silent, staring at each other. The memory of the warning, "Run, Elia," flashed in her mind, along with the stormy night of whirlwinds and fire. She whispered that she was fine, though her hands instinctively reached for her sword. She wondered if she could defeat Elnor at her level. Elnor gently extended her hand, but Elia didn't react. Confused, she realized she had seen the hand but felt nothing. Elnor said calmly, "Give it back." Elia picked up the bag and handed it back, shaking. She wondered why Dodd also seemed familiar with her. As they passed, Elnor told her to turn right and she would reach Dodd's room. Elnor froze and demanded to know how Elia knew the way. Elia replied she'd been with him the whole time. Elnor asked why, and Elia smiled politely, saying it was for friendship among new students. Elnor warned her that new students weren't allowed to socialize with the opposite sex. Elia was shocked, repeating, "Not allowed?" Elnor said she had just made the rule and that Elia could no longer go to his room. Elia asked why the president cared and walked away, reminding her to remember the rule. Elia thought about Dodd's words, that he was as serious as her hatred, and decided she needed to get closer to him. The Academy's placement exam grouped students based on performance. Because Elia defeated the warrior candidate, she was placed in the highest tier. Everyone else seemed proud, but he was worried, especially because the girl he pushed away yesterday was now in his group. The system notified that Elia's curiosity level had risen to 5 and was about to shift to interest, which would trigger a special event. Dodd wondered why her interest kept rising and remembered the snacks and letter sent to him last night. He wondered if someone was watching him. A call announced Group 1's turn. Dodd sighed and decided to focus on the exam, hoping nothing major would happen since it was part of the main storyline. The system showed Elnor's trust level rising and a character event approaching. Elnor stood solemnly and introduced herself as the exam supervisor. Dodd was stunned. This couldn't be a coincidence. Elnor's event was scheduled for today, and now she was directly overseeing his group. 5 people around a table watched through an orb. They agreed that if Dodd was truly that strong, they needed leaders to monitor the exam. Elnor ordered them to move to the testing area and promised to answer questions later. Luca admired the place, saying it must have cost a lot. Someone told him to stay quiet and follow. They entered a dark area, and the lights suddenly went out. Elnor fell silent, and Elia asked if this was part of the test. Dodd examined a lever and realized the entrance was sealed and the power cut. The system announced that the Elnor event was now active. Dodd realized it was a trap, not a test. The system revealed the event. Surviving assassins were targeting Elnor, and they had to protect her. One student reassured everyone they could handle it. A red-haired student urged them to move, fearing what could happen. Dodd realized all of them were members of the protagonist's party, and this was where they first met in the script. Suggested moving to the central hall, reasoning it was the safest and easiest to defend. Someone noticed a map there and agreed. Trisha, frightened, asked about ambushes. Dodd insisted the president and others had likely sensed the danger too, so the central hall was best. Elia protested, but Dodd said he couldn't explain yet, only that it was important. He thought protecting his life was the top priority. Footsteps echoed in the dark as they moved. Dodd remembered his powerful punch against Elia and felt it had earned him credibility. He planned to hide until the event ended, since the assassination target was Elnor, not him. Suddenly, someone called out to him. A suspicious tall man asked for directions to repair the electrical system, saying he couldn't see in the dark. Dodd was annoyed, but the system flashed a red warning, detecting danger. The group moved through the dark corridor as water splashed under Trisha's feet. She worried aloud if Dodd would be safe alone, and Elia replied that he must already be planning something, though everything felt off. Above them, masked figures waited to strike, but Elnor had already sensed their presence. Meanwhile, Campbell walked calmly beside the so-called repairman. The assassin judged his steps and decided he was an amateur, easy prey, planning to kill him and take his place. When Dodd got no response, the man tore off his disguise and revealed a blade, declaring it time to end things. The main hero sighed, relieved his guess was right, mocking the man's habits that hadn't changed. The assassin burned with anger while Dodd tightened his grip and activated his desperate survival skill. Both took combat stances, ready to clash. Elsewhere, the ambush collapsed instantly. Black-clad attackers were smashed into walls and pierced by arrows, falling one after another. Elia struck down several at once, while Elnor crushed the rest with overwhelming force. Elnor seized a survivor and coldly demanded answers, threatening his life. Terrified, he revealed the Crescent Guild was involved and that their assassin was inside the building. Elia realized in shock that only one person could be in danger. She understood then. Dodd had made himself bait to draw out the strongest enemy. She questioned why he would go that far, and what truly connected him to Elnor. Elnor dismissed it flatly, insisting there was nothing between them. Back in the corridor, the assassin cursed his defeat, confused by traces of Tristan's swordsmanship. Dodd ended it in a single decisive move, piercing his heart before he could counter. The system confirmed that Tristan's sword technique had grown stronger. Leaning against the wall, Campbell realized he should never have fought him head-on. The wounded assassin accused him of setting a trap and demanded to know who he really was. The system noted the deadly charm activating as the villain grasped the situation. Dodd explained calmly that this place was a safe point, which is why he led him here. He spared the assassin's life, ordering him to spread a warning. Stay away from Miss Tristan or die next time. He knew stopping them now reduced the risk of Elnor's future awakening. The assassin sneered, asking what would happen if he returned. The main hero answered without hesitation that he would protect her again. When asked if she truly mattered that much, Dodd simply said yes. The system flashed again as the villain's favor surged. At that moment, Elnor arrived, staring at Dodd in confusion as she stepped closer. In the student council room, a tired voice complained about the chaos, spies, and non-stop assassinations, cursing the Academy's state. They concluded the enemy was relentless, yet Elnor reacted with strange calm, answering everything with vague indifference. Her friend snapped, threatening to punch her if she said, "I wonder" again. Elnor calmly provoked her, caught the thrown bottle effortlessly, and asked what her problem was. The friend accused her of being distracted all day and demanded honesty. Elnor finally admitted she had started taking interest in someone. Shocked silence followed until the name slipped out: Dodd Campbell. Her friend panicked about Duke Tristan, but Elnor brushed it off, claiming it wasn't affection, just observation. She insisted she was merely testing him, calmly studying his student file. Her friend didn't fully understand, but Elnor seemed confident it was harmless. Elsewhere, the main hero lay on his bed, staring at an academy notice delaying his class assignment. He felt irritated, wondering why he wasn't placed into a special group despite the rules. A system update appeared, confirming the first main quest was cleared and a new one tied to the freshman ceremony had begun. Campbell analyzed it carefully, realizing class specialization would define future growth. Another alert appeared. Elnor's trust level had temporarily jumped, triggering a major event countdown. Elia's interest level was also nearing a critical shift, placing all key characters on a collision course. Dodd slumped forward, exhausted, realizing the final boss, protagonist arc, and main quest were overlapping. Something big was clearly coming. Then, a shocking reward appeared: a skill copy ability. The main hero froze in disbelief, realizing how broken it was, yet decided it was too valuable to waste now. Knowing danger was close, Campbell slipped into the Academy's abandoned district and entered an old armory. He equipped speed boosters, stealth gear, and silent shoes bought earlier. Moving like a shadow, Dodd reached a hidden treasure zone and restored his stamina with a recovery item. He searched through relics, focused on finding one final object. He retrieved an ancient censer filled with immense power, satisfied everything was ready. At that moment, stacked crates collapsed, ruining his luck. From beneath the debris, a sleeping girl was revealed. Dodd froze as he recognized her: Yuria, the cursed sword goddess and future chapter boss. The system screamed danger as Yuria woke, tightening the chain in her hand. Before Campbell could explain, she swung at him without hesitation, triggering a life-threatening alert. The fight reminded him of his earlier duel with Elia, pure pain taken head-on. Back then, he survived by gritting his teeth. This time, it was a true life-or-death struggle. Cold steel grazed past him, making the danger painfully real. Campbell tried again and again to explain that it was a misunderstanding, that he never meant harm, but his battered body could barely keep up. Yuria stayed silent, her eyes filled with disdain and suspicion. He tightened the chain, snapping it through the air like a furious metal beast. The main hero could only dodge and plead, while Yuria attacked with clear killing intent. Every strike aimed to end his life, yet Dodd narrowly avoided them, taking as little damage as possible. Her eyes widened when she noticed his timing. Without warning, she unleashed a relentless barrage, forcing Campbell to retreat in panic. A blade shot toward him like lightning. Dodd clenched his teeth, shut his eyes, and stood perfectly still. The sword stopped inches from his face. Yuria pulled the chain back, and Campbell finally exhaled. He knew this boundary well. The curse limited her range to 3.5 steps. Anyone closer would die instantly, but she herself could not move beyond it. Seeing him standing at the edge, Yuria coldly asked if he dared step forward. Dodd replied without hesitation, telling her to slash him if she wished. She answered yes, instantly. In that moment, Campbell understood. There was no escape. Suddenly, her stomach growled in the silence. Dodd froze. This was her isolated zone, rarely visited by anyone. Thinking quickly, he gently offered her a cake, revealing the energy recovery cakes he had bought earlier from the system. Yuria snapped in anger, accusing him of cheap tricks and bribery. Dodd said nothing and casually tossed the cake away. By pure instinct, she leapt and caught it midair. As she ate, The tension finally eased. She admitted it might have been a misunderstanding. Dodd silently noted that hunger made her impossible to reason with. Relieved, he muttered that it had been dangerously close. Yuria stood behind him and suddenly asked who he was and why he was there. Dodd paused, knowing the truth would get him killed. Calmly, he claimed he had come to bring her food at someone's request. While eating, Yuria watched him with curiosity. Dodd realized that meeting her this early was never supposed to happen in the story. He reassured her that her sister was safe in the Holy Empire and advised her to stay hidden for now. That finally earned her trust. Yuria, originally from the Holy Empire, had fled to Fonte because of the Emperor. As the Cursed Sword's vessel, she carried the cruel three-step restriction. Mentioning her only remaining family softened her resolve. She had suffered too much and had little hope left. The next morning arrived with warm sunlight, and a cheerful voice echoed across the academy grounds. Principal Elia guided the students, pointing out the buildings, arena, and training fields. She explained that everyone would choose a major and a minor. Students asked whether the system matched the Holy Empire's education. Elia smiled and said it mirrored the Grand Cathedral's training. As the explanations continued, Dodd stood quietly, absorbing every detail. This orientation was crucial for gathering world intel. He grew impatient with the endless questions until someone pointed toward a distant sealed zone. A vast area shimmered behind a barrier, half real and half unreal. The teacher warned them it was forbidden and heavily punished. In Campbell's mind, one word surfaced: the void. It was the battlefield where heaven and hell had once clashed. Though centuries had passed, divine and demonic remnants still collided there, which was why three factions closely monitored it. Snapping back to reality, Dodd noticed Luca excitedly asking to get closer. Elia allowed it, assuring them the barrier was safe. The group approached the shield, and Dodd smiled inwardly. This matched his plan perfectly. The students relaxed and even ate lunch beside the void, trusting the barrier completely. Without it, the academy could not exist in this location. Feeling uneasy, Campbell asked to move farther away. Elia warned him not to wander too far, but allowed it. From a distance, Talion scoffed, annoyed by Dodd's growing attention. In a hidden spot, Dodd prepared an ancient censer. He added powdered Shillon horn, phoenix feathers, and a coral fan. Everything was finally ready. The supreme divine relic activated. A ring of ethereal light formed in the air as Campbell stared without blinking. He had come all this way for this moment. This device would allow him to reach beings no ordinary person should ever contact. Dodd stood calmly as a massive blast erupted ahead of him, showing no fear at all. Someone asked where the Allied forces were stationed. Dodd replied that he ordered them to flatten the land, not dig pointless trenches. He stared ahead and noticed soldiers digging clumsily. One argued that leveling ground didn't mean making holes because the soil was too hard. Another mocked him, saying the shovel wasn't tougher than the ground. That moment, Izar and his companion glanced toward Dodd. Izar muttered about the strange human staring silently. Izar suddenly stepped forward with a terrifying glare. He demanded to know why the soldier had stopped working. The soldier stuttered as a magic circle formed before him. Nearby, others continued arguing without noticing. Orders rang out to spread positions and stop digging deeper. A frightened shout followed as a frog suddenly jumped out. Soon, a vehicle arrived with loudspeakers blaring. Someone announced the arrival of holy mud bricks. An angel asked how many were delivered. The answer was simple: far too many. The driver scolded an angel for eating cookies on duty. The angel replied lazily, telling her to save energy and keep driving. Izar urged the younger angels to stop slacking and work faster. Embarrassed, one angel rushed off, calling Izar respectfully. Another boy asked the captain about delayed supplies. The captain apologized, explaining the transport vehicle was under repair. Elsewhere, Dodd complained that their equipment had broken. Dodd chuckled, realizing angels functioned like a disciplined army. They followed strict ranks and rules unique to this world. He understood that early contact with high-ranking angels was rare. Their desires, however, were surprisingly simple. Suddenly, food boxes appeared neatly around Dodd. He thanked them and immediately started eating. The rich aroma caught the angels' attention. They whispered, curious about what he was eating. Dodd smiled and invited them to eat before exhaustion set in. In an instant, the food was teleported to the workers. A system message confirmed successful delivery. The angels happily shared the pastries. Izar laughed, calling Dodd impressive, and announced a break. Dodd realized one meal for him fed everyone here. Light rays descended as voices praised the generosity. Angel stepped forward, offering Dodd a blessing in return. He was told to make a reasonable request. Dodd was shocked by how easily they agreed. Izar explained why Dodd was treated differently. He saw Dodd's hidden potential clearly. Izar urged Dodd to invest in his dormant ability. That power, though dangerous, could shape his future. He warned Dodd about a cruel yet friendly monster watching him. Despite concern, Dodd stayed calm and analytical. Izar praised his composure and completed the blessing. Before leaving, Izar encouraged Dodd to believe in himself. The magic circle vanished, leaving Dodd deep in thought. The system revealed a Supreme Divinity C+ ability. It granted stamina conversion and a temporary protective shield. Dodd analyzed the skills, recognizing their survival value. Their potential for evolution made them incredibly rare. However, mana usage remained his biggest obstacle. That was the true reason he came here. Someone snapped him back to reality, accusing him of not listening. Dodd confirmed he heard everything. They discussed forming a 2-person team. Dodd confidently claimed his partner would arrive soon. The man scoffed, doubting anyone would join Dodd. Dodd calmly stated the place would soon be crowded. Right on cue, a girl appeared behind them. She politely asked if this was the Monster Research Department. Dodd greeted her, recalling the angel's advice. She recognized him too, whispering softly. They spoke awkwardly about getting to know each other. Memories surfaced of her earlier confession. Back then, a warden had dragged her away. Freshman dating rules caused rumors to spread. When questioned, she denied any relationship. Dodd casually offered a handshake. She panicked internally, misunderstanding his intent. She assumed he was trying to provoke jealousy. Inside the simulated dungeon academy, darkness filled the space, broken only by 4 glowing red points. A tense voice asked Dodd if he was truly confident about this plan. Dodd tried to reassure her with an awkward smile, reminding her how she once tried to attack him. She replied stiffly, noting that she was actually the one who ended up hurt. Dodd's expression instantly hardened as he entered battle mode. Pointing forward, he shouted instructions toward the 9 o'clock direction. A massive monster roared, bearing crushing fangs as it charged. In one swift motion, she cleaved its head clean off. Dodd immediately warned about 2 enemies descending from above. They resembled vicious bat creatures with crimson eyes and long fangs. Using sharp observation, Dodd identified their weakness at the neck. Elia struck precisely, piercing both bodies without hesitation. Annoyed, she complained that Dodd was only giving orders. He refused to fight, continuing to analyze the battlefield. Blades flew in from both sides at terrifying speed. She deflected them easily while following Dodd's countdown. A venom sprayer emerged on the right side. Elia destroyed it instantly with a decisive slash. Dodd warned of arrows approaching from behind. She panicked but managed to block the attack just in time. Following Dodd's commands made Elia increasingly irritated. She realized his guidance was frighteningly accurate. Dodd stiffened, thinking bitterly about his useless F-rank stats. In simulations, his survival skill couldn't activate at all. Suddenly, Elia charged straight toward Dodd, sword raised. His face went pale as he braced for impact. At the last second, Elia leapt past him. Her strike decapitated the monster lurking behind Dodd. Fireworks burst as the record time shattered. Elia stood confidently, while Dodd stared in disbelief. Dodd muttered in confusion, questioning how a duo run became a solo record. Despite appearances, he calmly concluded he was a true strategist. He casually told Elia the next area would be harder. She was furious, but too angry to even turn back. The entire fight had been observed through a magic mirror. Percy, head of spellcraft, praised their performance. She decided more funding should go into simulations. Turning to Conrad, she asked for his opinion. Conrad noted the design felt tactical in nature. He remarked that the true surprise wasn't the warrior, but Dodd. Percy scoffed, claiming Dodd was merely tagging along. Conrad firmly disagreed with her assessment. He explained that Elia's strength was obvious, but Dodd was the core. Every command he gave was perfectly timed and calculated. Conrad concluded Dodd fought like a veteran of countless wars. He then urged Percy to place her bet. A broadcast suddenly reached Dodd and Elia. Conrad announced the academy would gamble on their success. If they passed their first year, they'd earn 1 wish. Despite the pressure, Dodd accepted without hesitation. Elia was stunned by his confidence. Percy, however, looked displeased by his response. Elsewhere, Alphonte complained irritably while fetching water. Elnor lay exhausted, her body trembling. Elnor spoke of forgotten techniques taught by her mother. She was trying to relearn them through repetition. A dark rumor surrounded the Tristan bloodline. Their talent came paired with madness and tragic endings. Elnor dismissed the concern and drank deeply from the bottle. Alphonte questioned whether she was truly fine. Elnor insisted nothing troubled her anymore, but her clenched grip crushed the bottle in her hand. Alphonte revealed news from a junior student. Elia, the warrior candidate, was teaming up with someone. Elnor immediately recognized the name. She deduced the pair system and sighed quietly. Water spilled across the floor as the bottle collapsed. Alphonte stared, realizing Elnor was clearly disturbed. Dodd unsheathed his sword, calm as ever. Elia asked if breaking the all-time record was really worth the risk. He answered with a short, indifferent sound. That confidence made Elia frown, unsure if he truly had a plan. Dodd silently analyzed the artificial monster's fixed patterns. He knew their weaknesses but chose not to explain. Casually, he said he was confident because she was with him. Elia blushed slightly and replied that she didn't believe him. Conrad's voice echoed through the speakers, asking if they were ready. Dodd replied instantly that he was prepared. Impressed, Conrad ordered the difficulty to be adjusted. Dodd requested the highest possible level without hesitation. Percy protested loudly, calling the decision reckless. She warned that the highest difficulty could be fatal. Dodd still insisted it was worth attempting. Conrad approved the request, clearly pleased. Elia looked uneasy, doubting their chances. Dodd reassured her, saying there was no turning back now. Percy sipped her drink, annoyed at Conrad's behavior. She sensed something different about this situation. Conrad calmly said they would simply intervene if things went wrong. Slaughter mode was activated across the dungeon. Percy sighed as the tactics department despaired. Meanwhile, Dodd remained completely confident. Monsters surged toward Dodd from every direction. The system issued a red warning, lethal danger detected. Gripping his sword, Dodd stayed composed. With one powerful swing, he decapitated a massive rhinoceros. Conrad erupted with excitement, shouting in triumph. Percy spat out her tea in shock. The tactics chief stared wide-eyed in disbelief. Elia noticed too and shouted that she knew it. A massive wolf charged Dodd head-on. He sprinted forward without fear. Percy questioned everything she believed. Dodd's strikes were precise, each one instantly fatal. Conrad explained that Dodd had been hiding his true ability. Anyone would doubt him without seeing this firsthand. As the battle progressed, both sides grew stronger. Dodd and the monsters evolved together. Elia fought relentlessly, cutting down monsters one after another. Dodd matched her pace perfectly. They moved in sync, eliminating beasts efficiently. Elia clenched her teeth and unleashed a glowing strike. After killing the giant ant, she shouted Dodd's name. He instantly responded and leapt into motion. Using her shoulder as a foothold, Dodd launched upward. He positioned himself flawlessly in midair. Executing Tristan's Lavalp technique, he struck repeatedly. The giant ant was shredded by countless precise blows. Dodd landed smoothly as an announcement echoed. They had shattered the all-time record. Suddenly, the wounded ant lashed out again. Elia sensed danger and warned Dodd. A golden flash sliced through the air. Conrad's sword obliterated the creature completely. Dodd stood shaken while Conrad landed before him. He calmly congratulated Dodd on the achievement. Elia, exhausted and barely breathing, was thrilled. Conrad thanked the warrior candidates formally. Sheathing his sword, Conrad smiled confidently. He declared his victory over Percy. Percy still looked unconvinced, her mouth twitching. Soon after, the official results were announced. They were granted use of an entire warehouse. They could also request anything from the Magic Dean. Elia shouted joyfully, unable to contain herself. Dodd smiled, recognizing how rare this reward was. Elia then asked why Dodd was always so calm. He asked what she meant. She said he acted as if everything went according to plan. Dodd kept his thoughts to himself, hiding a knowing smile. Elia raised his fist, offering a gesture. Dodd blinked, confused. She smiled brightly and explained it was a fist bump. Dodd reacted indifferently, but went along with it. As their fists met, a system message appeared. Elia's curiosity reached a reliable stage. Dodd asked if she was okay. Blushing, she nodded softly. She waved cheerfully and ran off. "See you tomorrow," she called out. A familiar voice commented on her personality. Dodd froze, recognizing it instantly. The student council president had been watching. Elnor stayed calm, her face unreadable, as she asked softly if he liked the freshman. When Dodd didn't answer, she cleared her throat, making him jump. He stammered in confusion, unsure how to respond. Inside, he realized his survival instinct hadn't activated, meaning she wasn't attacking him. Elnor didn't back off and repeated the question more seriously. Before Dodd could answer, the system screamed a danger alert. His face drained of color as an overwhelming pressure hit him. The warnings kept sounding, forcing him to speak. Trying to stay composed, Dodd asked what she wanted from him. Her surprise flickered, but her presence quickly overwhelmed him again. Summoning all his courage, Dodd blurted out the truth. He said that despite training with Elia, he had wanted to see Elnor. Elnor froze, caught off guard by his confession. Dodd exhaled in relief, though his thoughts spiraled in panic. He silently scolded himself for saying something so reckless. A faint smile tugged at the corner of Elnor's lips. She asked if he meant he had missed her all this time. Without thinking, Dodd immediately agreed. Crossing her arms, she asked why it was him she mattered to. Dodd faltered, unable to find an answer. Even in his own mind, he didn't understand his feelings. Seeing his confusion, Elnor brushed her hair back shyly. Her cheeks reddened as she looked away. She dismissed it as simple friendship and recalled the train incident. She assumed he still remembered her priority ranking. Dodd panicked, realizing he had no memory of that list at all. Before he could explain, she handed him an envelope. She said she only came to deliver it. Dodd stared at it, completely baffled. He couldn't guess whether it was a letter or a challenge. She shyly told him to open it later, alone. Still confused, Dodd agreed awkwardly. Sunlight streamed in as regret and nervousness settled in. He wondered if she wanted to team up with him. The freshman welcome party came to mind. Spending time with her there didn't sound so bad. Refusing her could lower her opinion of him. Worse, it might provoke someone dangerous. A knock echoed at the door. Dodd opened it, already guessing who it was. Elia stood there and handed him another envelope. Dodd stared, shocked to receive a second one. Elia noticed his reaction and questioned him immediately. He dodged the question, barely holding it together. She winked playfully, hinting she'd made her decision. Then she leapt over the railing and disappeared. She excitedly shouted for him to open it. Dodd reached out, but she was already gone. Holding both envelopes, Dodd felt overwhelmed. This situation felt unreal. He imagined Elnor and Elia facing each other. Neither seemed willing to back down. Realization hit him hard. It was another team request. None of this existed in the original storyline. Choosing Elnor would anger the protagonist. Choosing Elia would provoke the final boss. Rejecting both felt just as dangerous. Desperation pushed him toward a reckless idea. The freshman welcome party arrived at last. Lanterns glowed as the hall buzzed with noise. Students shouted directions and greeted each other loudly. The crowd was overwhelming and lively. Elnor stood out effortlessly, visibly irritated by the crowd. She called the place unbearably chaotic. Still, she smiled and thanked him for coming with her. Dodd, now sporting a new hairstyle, followed her inside. Earlier, Dodd had purchased a clone item. For 1,000 points, it created a copy of himself. Though it couldn't move, all buffs applied to it. Dodd hoped it would still be useful. The system announced a double-date event. He had chosen to go out with both of them. Failure would trigger a penalty. If anyone noticed him and his clone together, he was finished. To reduce risk, he selected the cold gentleman setting. Then a sudden roar echoed through the area. A furious monster snarled from inside an iron cage. The crowd was ordered to clear the road. Dodd relaxed once it passed. It was only an external monster meant for experiments. He knew this would trigger the main incident later. All he needed to do was survive until then. With both girls nearby, survival seemed possible. Then, everything went wrong. The pheromone effect activated suddenly. His body began emitting an alluring scent. Elnor appeared behind him without warning. Dodd stiffened instantly. She caught the scent and narrowed her eyes. She asked if he was wearing perfume. Dodd denied it, blaming the flowers instead. Elnor shook her head, unconvinced. She leaned closer, clearly affected. That scent, she admitted, was driving her crazy. Dodd tried to wave away the strange scent clinging to him, clearly uneasy. He muttered that he had no idea what pheromones she was talking about. Elnor shut her eyes, as if hiding her own reaction. A system alert appeared, confirming the pheromone effect was active. The system stated the target was resisting attraction with great effort. Dodd stood dazed when he suddenly heard a soft voice call his name. She said his name gently and looked up at him shyly. She said she had only just noticed how masculine he actually was. Dodd froze internally, screaming in panic. He forced a smile and quickly suggested walking around the booths. She said he should lead the way, calling him freshman. As she moved closer, Dodd grew more nervous. He worried his clone might already be with Elia. Running into them would be disastrous. Elnor silently told herself to calm down and stay focused. Dodd could only pray nothing unexpected happened. He thought things might work out if both escorts stayed separate. Trying to distract her, he suggested stopping for snacks. Her cheeks warmed as she nodded and agreed. They stopped at a grill stall filled with sizzling skewers. He asked if she wanted to try wild boar skewers. Inside, he believed this choice would kill the mood. He thought he needed to weaken the pheromone effect fast. But she shyly asked how he knew she liked that dish. Her question caught him off guard. He awkwardly said it was just a coincidence. She ate the skewer anyway and asked if he wasn't eating. Dodd looked away, flustered and unsure how to reply. He reminded himself to balance closeness with distance, and most importantly, keep Elia far away. Elnor stopped at an accessory stall, clearly excited. She asked if he wanted to buy anything. Seeing the small trinkets, Dodd guessed girls liked such things. He offered to buy her something despite panicking inside. He swore to himself he wouldn't raise her favorability. He chose a plain yellow button on purpose. He asked if she thought the button was okay. He believed it was the worst gift possible. Her shy response crushed his plan. She said she actually needed a button for her uniform. Dodd clenched his teeth, cursing his luck. Nothing he tried seemed to lower her interest. They decided to sit and rest while eating. Elnor casually asked if he had chosen his major. They sat at a quiet table with food laid out. He said he planned to study theology. She looked surprised and suggested the Knight's Order instead. She said his talent would be wasted otherwise. He calmly explained it was part of a long-term plan. He said it wasn't a sudden decision. She leaned forward and asked his reasons seriously. He replied that he needed to protect something important. She asked what exactly he wanted to protect. Dodd thought the answer, but didn't say it aloud. He knew sacred magic was key to his survival, but instead, he gave a vague response. He said he'd had something to protect since childhood. He referred to an event tied to a future secret society. He knew the final boss was weak to sacred magic. She frowned and asked if that explained his involvement with her. Dodd hesitated, unable to answer properly. She continued, mentioning the Tristan family curse. She explained how the curse drives members insane, and asked if he knew how it could be broken. He answered softly that angels' blessings were rumored to help, specifically, blessings from 2 archangels. She agreed, and said that was why her family lived in fear. Then she asked why he always appeared to protect her. She demanded to know his true intentions. Dodd met her eyes and said he wanted to protect her. She didn't understand why he would go that far. He said plainly that if he didn't, she would die. He said there was no other reason. She tucked her hair behind her ear calmly. She said she had known he was strange from the start. He sighed and said he heard that often. Telling her the truth made him feel relieved. He hoped it was enough to satisfy her doubts. The scene shifted to a dungeon-like basement. Elia thought again about how strange Dodd was. She was with one of Dodd's clones, surrounded by monsters. The beasts snarled, filling the area with danger. Elia walked ahead silently, wondering if he was angry. She noticed he had barely spoken. Suddenly, Dodd stopped and asked when they reached the basement. She thought she needed to get closer to understand him. She admitted she didn't know how to deal with men. The situation was driving her crazy. Meanwhile, the clone examined the surroundings carefully. Elia commented that the place was full of living monsters. She said they must be Academy experiment subjects. She criticized the professors for leaving them there. A nearby monster roared, drawing her attention. She noticed even large beasts were present. She stepped closer and realized the cages weren't chained. The lock sensor suddenly activated. The monster roared violently as alarms rang. Elia froze, unable to react in time. An explosion erupted without warning. Dodd grabbed her and shielded her from the blast. Back at the party, Dodd felt the ground shake. Elnor sensed something was wrong as well. Everyone at the welcome party panicked. Screams echoed as the tremors spread. In the dungeon, Dodd's clone shielded Elia. She asked him why he did that. He replied calmly that it was his duty. His answer left her confused. The explosion set much of the dungeon ablaze. The monsters were freed from their cages. They began closing in on the two of them, their teeth bared, ready to attack. Iron bars lay scattered across the floor. They were the only weapons available. She thanked him for protecting her. Then, she said it was her turn to protect him. A system alert echoed through the area. Main quest activated. Monsters have escaped and must be dealt with immediately. The notice warned of harsh penalties if casualties increased. Rewards included rare gear and crafting materials. Dodd moved instantly and said he had something urgent to handle. He begged the guildmaster to locate a priest at once. Elnor stopped him, confused, telling him to wait. Dodd pleaded desperately, saying the trainees had to be protected first. She stood there, breathing heavily from exhaustion. The system suddenly announced the clone had been recalled. Dodd rushed to Elia and asked if all the monsters were loose. She crouched with an iron bar and softly said she was relieved he woke up. At the same time, Elnor's favorability rose to curious interest. The system confirmed the main scenario had shifted. Elia mentioned one massive monster was still unaccounted for. Dodd froze, realizing it was the bear from earlier. Elia sighed deeply and said it should still be on the first floor. She added that stopping it quickly was still possible. She admitted she needed a short rest. Seeing her state, Dodd worried but knew the scenario came first. Failure would mean a devastating penalty. Stopping the monster was the only option. People looked up in terror as glowing red eyes appeared. The monster's gaze alone was horrifying. Someone shouted for everyone to hold out until help arrived. They warned not to let the barrier collapse. The beast slammed itself against the barrier. Cracks spread across the protective layer. A stern voice spoke up, stating the headmaster and knights weren't present. They insisted the angel's blessing couldn't be used. Elnor frowned and snapped that apprentices were at risk. She criticized the speaker harshly. He defended himself, saying such magic wasn't easily cast. He urged them to wait for the knights. He muttered that monster experiments never should have happened, blamed the authority given to the Tristan family. Elnor clenched her teeth in anger at his words. Dodd lost patience and stepped forward. He declared he would handle it himself. People panicked and tried to stop him. Someone shouted for him to wait, but Dodd charged ahead without hesitation. A trembling voice yelled that he was only an apprentice. They questioned if he even understood blessings. A woman nearby softly called his name. Dodd's eyes stayed sharp and fearless. He rushed forward without doubt. The system updated instantly. Supreme divinity merged with his rosary. A golden vial burst open in radiant light. A skill became available. Asceticism, sacred veil. The system detected extreme danger. A warning flashed, life-threatening situation. His emergency survival skill activated. He slid past the monster's side. Someone shouted at others to run. Dodd yelled for them to evacuate immediately. The monster lunged at him violently. The system confirmed asceticism was active. All secondary stats converted into physical power. He summoned a holy shield with both hands. A glowing cross formed in his palms. Angel wings spread out and blocked the attack. He endured the impact with clenched teeth. Everyone stared in disbelief. They questioned how a trainee could use such power. A priest screamed in frustration and envy. He said even true priests needed years to achieve that. Elnor stayed silent, deep in thought. She admitted nothing about Dodd surprised her anymore. Someone shouted in disbelief at the monster's failure. They mocked how it couldn't break a simple barrier. A calm voice exposed the truth. They accused the professor of doing nothing. Elnor turned and questioned him directly. Elia struck him without emotion. She dismissed him as useless. Then she asked another person why they arrived late. The person trembled and explained they collapsed in the basement. They then questioned how Dodd could cast a blessing. They said such magic required 10 years of training. Elnor was briefly stunned. She fell silent, recalling Dodd's earlier words. If he didn't protect her, she would die. Her gaze drifted as she sank into thought. Elia watched her quietly with admiration. Elia noted that even stored blessings had limits. Elnor looked up and asked what she meant. Elia explained gently that Dodd did this for the Tristan family, and especially for Elnor herself. There was no other reason for his actions. Elnor slowly began to understand. She sat in the darkness, hugging her knees, her eyes fixed on a distant glow. She looked closer as the light grew brighter. Raising her sword, she thought of Dodd. One thought echoed clearly in her mind. He truly was a strange man. The monster's assault intensified, pushing Dodd to his limit. Someone shouted in shock, calling out for the president. Everyone stared in disbelief as Elnor moved. Without hesitation, she rushed forward with her blade. She leapt high and slashed the monster's neck. The sudden pain made it roar and crash into the ground. A furious cry echoed as the beast lunged back at her. Elnor calmly lifted her sword to meet it. An overwhelming pressure burst from her strike. Dodd froze, eyes wide, watching her move. It was an authentic Tristan sword art. Her blade pierced again and again with flawless precision. Streams of radiant power poured from each strike. The monster couldn't retaliate and only endured. In a blink, Elnor closed the distance. Her sword stopped just short of its throat. The swing released a violent shockwave. The monster was blasted away in a massive explosion. She brushed her hair back, completely composed. Her voice softly invoked a spell, Tramontana. The ground-shaking blast followed instantly. Elnor watched calmly as the flames spread. Dodd stood stunned by her strength. It far surpassed the copied power he once used. Something felt wrong to him. In the original story, she was never involved here. The system acknowledged quest completion. Monster eliminated, 0 casualties achieved. A notice appeared. Nightfall in 30 seconds. Dodd glanced aside, lost in thought. He realized the professors behind monster experiments were Tristan allies. Elnor's action meant admitting her family's mistake. She stood proudly before the inferno, fearless. Yet politics never interested her, so why help? He dismissed the thought for later. Finishing the mission mattered more. Outside, flames raged as someone shouted for evacuation. A response confirmed everyone had escaped. Elnor sheathed her sword with cold indifference. Her presence radiated quiet nobility. She let out a breath. It's finished. Dodd suddenly sensed danger. A shadow moved behind the flames. The wounded monster struck from behind. Dodd shouted a warning instantly. Elnor turned just in time. Dodd activated the angel's blessing and shielded her. The creature's fur burned away, exposing bone. It howled and attacked Dodd repeatedly. Elnor stared in shock at his choice. Dodd collapsed, coughing blood. His vision faded into darkness. Time passed before he jolted awake. Someone announced that he was conscious. He muttered about the monster and Elnor. A voice assured him the threat was gone. He recognized the chancellor, Atalanta. She closed her book with a smile. All students were confirmed safe. She teased him about their missed talk earlier. Dodd calmly replied that he was fine. He wondered why an immortal like her visited. Was it because of the blessing? She got straight to the point. She had bad news, and worse news. Dodd chose to hear the bad first. She said he now had unprecedented attention. No student had faced so many incidents before, and his luck suggested more to come. Dodd frowned, displeased but unsurprised. He asked about the worse news. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She asked what he knew about demons in the academy. The lamp's glow filled the room with light. Atalanta chuckled, amused by his reaction. Dodd showed no panic at her mention of demons. Sitting on the bed, he watched her carefully. He admitted he couldn't reveal everything he knew. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to read her intentions. She raised a brow, intrigued by the word intentions. Dodd calmly explained his strange situation. He was the only one not reassigned and barred from classes. She asked if that upset him. She explained the world was unstable after recent events. Old powers were losing control rapidly. Talented people were being hunted aggressively. Even hell wouldn't be off limits to recruit them. Dodd looked away and connected the dots aloud. Coups, reforms, and succession wars weren't coincidences. She studied him silently, impressed. Then she confirmed his guess. The Golden Triangle looked calm on the surface, but beneath it, talent wars were raging. Most students were unaware. Yet the entire continent felt the consequences. The Tribal Council and Holy Empire were affected. 3 major powers were quietly preparing for war. Dodd reasoned that his actions were being monitored, yet no one intervened. That meant information was being controlled. She stayed silent, smiling knowingly. She thought to herself that he understood politics well. Dodd then asked a serious question. Would being noticed put them in danger? Her answer was soft but terrifying. Yes, she said. The world would end. Dodd jolted in shock. Images of burning continents filled his mind. She pulled out a paper marked with a strange seal. She asked if he recognized it. Dodd felt a chill as he stared at the symbol. The mark of the false purifiers. Seeing his reaction, she was surprised. He clearly knew about them. She explained they worship demons in secret. Their goal was total destruction. Elnor's assassination attempt was their work. So was the monster outbreak. Both targeted the Tristan family. And it might not stop there. Dodd asked why she was telling him this. She summoned a black, cracked card. She handed it to him without explanation, telling him to take it. Dodd froze as he accepted it. An interspace key, an impossible item. Atalanta noticed his expression immediately. She knew he understood its value. She told him to protect it well and prove his worth. If he impressed her, she'd reward him again. A dull explosion echoed overhead. Surroundings reset back to normal, as if nothing had happened. She calmly poured herself tea and warned him to keep this secret. Dodd agreed instantly. Then she changed the topic. She asked about his relationship with the warrior candidate and the mage. Dodd screamed internally. Out loud, he answered stiffly that things were fine. She smiled knowingly over her tea. She hoped it stayed that way. Dodd asked if maintaining those ties was mandatory. She answered simply, yes, or the world ends. He grabbed his head in despair, shouting that it was happening again. Apocalyptic images flooded his mind. He groaned inwardly. Why was this world so fragile? Atalanta laughed at his misery. She said she wasn't joking, and thought quietly to herself. This plan required exactly 3 people. The scene shifted abruptly. Outside the academy, Dodd sighed deeply. The interspace key was clenched in his hand. He stood in the corridor, overwhelmed, telling himself to deal with it later. Players were never meant to own this item. Something was clearly wrong with the story. A voice suddenly called out to him. Dodd froze in surprise. It was Professor Conrad, the night headmaster. He smiled calmly. He said he'd been searching for Dodd. Dodd hid the key behind his back. He asked why the professor needed him. Conrad answered plainly. Dodd couldn't avoid school forever, This was his temporary assignment. Starting tomorrow, he'd study with specific students. Conrad's expression turned serious. The names were revealed in the letter. Class President Elner Tristan, Vice President Elia Chrysonax. Dodd broke into a cold sweat. His mind screamed in panic. The world is ending! Sunlight spilled through the classroom windows, turning the walls gold as the lecture echoed. The professor explained why swords remain the foundation of all combat. He discussed handling obstacles when fighting. Suddenly, a voice interrupted the flow. Elnor spoke up, her tone sharp, questioning the usefulness of theory. She doubted it would matter in real battles. The professor froze, clearly caught off guard. She continued, confident and unapologetic. She pointed out that even skilled knights fall to ranged attacks. The room stirred as the professor hesitated. Elnor argued that unless sword mastery is perfected, ranged skills are essential. Her words pressed the issue further. Elia narrowed her eyes, but stepped in calmly. She admitted the professor wasn't entirely wrong. Elia argued that terrain can neutralize ranged attacks, but questioned what happens when distance disappears. She explained that close combat exists to solve that gap. Theory and practice weren't the same thing. She reminded Elnor that this was the professor's class. If she disliked it, silence was an option. Dodd sat frozen between them, terrified. The clash was quiet, but vicious. Elnor challenged Elia directly, asking if she was being forced to attend. Their gazes locked like drawn blades. Elnor declared her duty as student council president. She refused to compromise on education quality. Elia snapped back, telling her to stop interrupting. Her patience was clearly gone. The professor nervously tried to calm them down. He suggested ending the lecture early. Elnor scoffed, mocking the idea that theory saves lives. Elia fired back without hesitation. She insulted Elnor's understanding of advice, calling the situation absurd. Elia cleared her throat, trying to move on. She suggested continuing the class. With a smug smile, Elia claimed victory. She insisted Dodd would agree with her. Elnor sighed, brushing her hair back. She accepted the loss and allowed the lecture to continue. The professor gave up trying to restore order. He told them to study independently. Talion watched quietly, frowning. His gaze never left the group. Dodd activated his system screen in silence. He noticed students staring at them. Sitting between a noble heir and a warrior candidate felt suffocating. He forced himself to focus. The system displayed Elnor's profile. Trust level 5, reward available. He reviewed her swordsmanship skill, a legendary style usable with any weapon. Next came a deep breathing technique, a method maximizing endurance and strength. Dodd realized how perfectly the skills matched. Elnor alone could fully unleash their power. That's why she becomes the final boss. The screen shifted again. Elia's profile appeared next. Curiosity and interest levels were rising. A new system rule unlocked, Law of Evil. Influence righteous allies to issue commands. The closer they are, the greater the reward. Corrupting them yields even more. Dodd stared at the screen in disbelief. Turning good people bad gave rewards? The scene changed instantly. The class entered a massive forest. Conrad welcomed them with a grin. Survival training had begun. He warned them that survival decides fate. Today's task was simple. Find something he would like. Time limit, 10 minutes. Students panicked at the lack of rules. Conrad calmly explained he alone would judge. Elnor remained silent, unimpressed. Groans echoed through the group. Elia smiled mischievously as Conrad shouted. The countdown began. Students formed groups quickly. Dodd sat alone on a rock. He reread the Law of Evil, wondering how to use it. Elia suddenly appeared beside him. She suggested teaming up. Dodd told her to stay with her group. She smiled, calling herself his friend. He stayed silent, hoping she'd leave. She kept pushing. She asked if he felt sick. He denied it and brushed her off. Elia tried to respond, but words failed her. She turned away, clearly hurt, and walked off. Trisha called after her anxiously. Dodd felt a stab of regret. Talion had watched everything. He finally stepped forward. He demanded to know Dodd's relationship with Elia. Dodd recognized him instantly. Talion Armin, second strongest in class, a future sub-boss. Dodd answered calmly, claiming no connection. Talion scoffed at him. The system flashed a warning. A righteous individual had been angered. Talion grabbed his collar and accusing him of suspicious behavior. Dodd realized he'd triggered something, a personality condition. Talion accused the duel of being staged. His rage was obvious. Dodd ignored the insult. Instead, he analyzed the opportunity. If Talion becomes a sub-boss later, he could be useful. Talion demanded the truth again. Dodd stayed calm. He leaned closer and whispered quietly. The match wasn't fake. Maybe Talion just wished it was. Seeing someone defeated so easily hurt. Elia, who had left earlier, was watching. She hadn't missed a thing. Talion snapped at the taunts, biting his lip as anger twisted his face. He proposed a bet. Whoever scored higher in the exercise would win. Outwardly calm, Campbell could tell everything was unfolding in his favor. Talion, meanwhile, was already walking into a trap of his own making. Elsewhere, Conrad approached Elnor with a frown. The teacher had asked him to help grade, and he questioned her fairness. Elnor responded coldly, defending her decision without hesitation. Conrad pressed her, demanding why a full score was given before submission. "He deserves it," she replied flatly. Those words stunned Conrad into raising his voice. Elnor narrowed her eyes, sensing his dissatisfaction. She told him to observe the main character himself if he doubted her judgment. As she turned to leave, Conrad grabbed her shoulder. He accused her of trying to get close to Dodd. She denied it, claiming she only didn't want him alone with the warrior candidate. Finding an excuse, she insisted on checking before anything happened. Conrad warned her that he could remove her entirely if he wished. Elnor left anyway, her concern clearly unresolved. Trisha watched the battlefield closely, unease creeping into her thoughts. Something about today felt wrong. With brute force, Elia struck monsters from both sides at once. Luca noted that powerful monsters gathering here felt suspicious. Someone pointed out rare mineral deposits nearby. Others suggested collecting gems to avoid low scores. As the group shifted tasks, a black mass began forming. It hovered near Elia's chest while she fought. Trisha noticed it immediately. The dense darkness felt like suppressed rage. She approached Elia, who sat casually atop a monster. "Have you been okay lately?" Trisha asked. Elia smiled brightly, saying nothing was wrong. But the darkness betrayed her calm expression. Trisha gently warned her emotions might overpower her reason. Elia finally broke and sat beneath a tree. With a tired voice, she admitted she couldn't fool Trisha. She confessed her frustration about Dodd keeping his distance. Trisha summarized it simply. He only wanted friendship. Elia snapped, questioning why boundaries were necessary. Trisha explained the rumors that could follow a minor noble like Campbell. If seen too close to a warrior candidate, gossip would spread. Elia realized Dodd might be protecting her instead. Trisha nodded, saying his intentions were probably sincere. Though distant now, Trisha believed he'd return once secure. Elia quietly reflected on those words. Elsewhere, the main character ran as system alerts echoed non-stop. Talion's fury was reaching its breaking point. A spear flew through the air as the system warned of permanent effects. Another message announced a reward tied to evil rules. Talion charged like a madman, spear crackling with rage. He screamed that he would kill Dodd. Strike after strike missed as Campbell dodged desperately. Talion shouted, demanding a real fight. Suddenly, Dodd turned and raised his hand. Talion halted, confused. With a dark smile, the character offered to split the loot. Talion exploded in rage, smashing a nearby tree. As Talion prepared another lightning-charged throw, Campbell fled. The spear flew, only to be sliced apart mid-air. A sword shattered it into pieces. Both men froze in shock. Elia stood between them, blade lowered. "Don't touch my friend," she warned. Talion froze the moment he saw her. Shock leaked into his voice as he called Elia's name. She immediately recognized her, the warrior candidate who once crushed him. Trying to sound casual, she implied they hadn't met since the chaos with the monster. As if time had erased what happened, Elia answered without patience that she is not telling the truth. Steel pressed against his throat as she corrected him. To her, this was their first meeting since his defeat. Campbell noticed Dodd stiffen. Even he hadn't expected things to escalate this fast. Talion attempted to keep her dignity, but the blade near her neck betrayed his fear. Elia's gaze shifted briefly. Her question made it clear she suspected Talion of bullying Dodd. She rushed to explain himself, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. She didn't let her finish. One precise move sent him crashing down. Elia stepped on him firmly. Her anger left no room for excuses. She made it clear that she wasn't here to listen. Talion panicked. Frustration twisted his words. She complained that Dodd didn't deserve such protection, and that friendships were his own choice. Our main character listened silently. Disgust simmered beneath his calm face. A terrifying thought crossed her mind. As she might have died that day. Her strength left him. Talion collapsed to his knees. Lowering his head, he apologized to Dodd, promising to never approach without permission again. Elia walked past Campbell, leaving chaos and silence behind her. Then Dodd watched Elia back disappear. A true warrior, through and through. Then Dodd also turned away. A familiar voice called out. Trisha introduced herself carefully. Campbell recognized her immediately. She was connected to Elias. That much he remembered. Trisha hesitated, choosing her words cautiously. Before she could speak, the hero had already walked away. He left only one line behind. That let him take his grades first. Trisha accepted it, though doubt crept into her thoughts. Dodd had pushed Talion into conflict. Suddenly a scene shifts at the collection area. Smoke filled the air. Dodd stopped in place. The scene shocked him. Conrad stood calmly. Elnor lay defeated. The explanation was blunt. She challenged him and lost. Campbell judged silently. Even so, Conrad acknowledged her growth, but Dodd focused on his goal, as his scores mattered more for him. While Elnor lay motionless while Conrad tells as he carefully chosen and high quality. He hinted Dodd should gift them to Percy. An easy way to earn favor, Dot. The main hero agreed. Then Trisha appeared again, clearly impatient, and said it was done now. Conrad gave final instructions. Trisha was asked to keep an eye on Elia. She accepted immediately. Then she turned to Dodd, her voice filled with concern. She warned him gently about Elia that she lost control whenever he was involved. Campbell absorbed her words. He reassured her anyway, promising to be careful. Later, in the spellcraft department, Percy sipped her tea calmly. She questioned his urgency. Using a wish so early felt reckless. The hero didn't back down. He needed divine help now. Since others complained behind him, Campbell calculated silently. Since Percy revealed her orders, she would assist within limits. The system updated abruptly. Rewards flooded in. His points were increased. An evil seed was obtained. New skills became available, and here Elia and Talion were marked, whereas negative seals applied. Dodd grew thoughtful. His current strength wasn't enough. Finally, Dodd spoke clearly. His request shocked the room. A cannon, one capable of wiping the academy away. Percy showed no reaction and coldly called him insane. She jumped up, furious, demanding where he planned to use such a thing. The main character calmly raised his hand and presented the agreement. The paper left Percy with no room to argue. The contract clearly stated she must fulfill any normal request. Campbell claimed this task shouldn't trouble the arcane department head. Percy argued that weapon creation was not ordinary. Dodd countered that a promise still had to be honored. He assured her the weapon wouldn't hurt anyone. It only needed to destroy something in one strike. That explanation worried Percy even more. Still, she sighed and finally agreed. She approved the cannon because of his recent help with monsters. The character thanked Professor Percy sincerely. Percy rambled afterward, clearly flustered. She couldn't believe people thought Dodd would save the world. She suddenly panicked at her own words. Blaming him, she scolded herself for losing focus. Campbell calmed her and reminded her of another promise. Percy paused, confused. He asked for his item from the Phantasmo repository. After getting approval, Dodd quietly left. Now holding the agreement, the character reviewed his plans. Canon permission secured. Materials were next. With the interdimensional key, gathering them would be easy. Everything was falling into place. An orange-haired man with a cane approached him. He asked if his name was Dodd Campbell. The man introduced himself as Galdair Riverback. He claimed to run a charitable purifier fund. Dodd stayed silent while cursing inwardly. He knew the fund was a front for corruption. Galdair, the purifier, revealed himself as the Flame of Wrath's leader. He handed over a business card confidently. He praised the character for stopping a monster alone, calling it proof of rare courage and skill. Galdair invited him to dinner, curious about his future. Campbell immediately became cautious. In the original story, Galdair targeted Elia. So why was he approaching me instead? The system couldn't possibly see me as the protagonist, right? Trying not to panic, Dodd said he'd think about it. Galdair named the meeting place and time. The Eye of Dusk, 3 days later. The character cursed internally at being cornered. That place was a high-end restaurant near the academy. Realistically, avoiding this event was impossible. So Campbell accepted the situation. If all risks were weighed carefully, defeating the purifier wasn't impossible. Still, he didn't understand why he took Elia's role. For now, he focused on the present. Future consequences could wait. Gathering his courage, Dodd knocked on a door. His tense expression betrayed his nerves. Elnor opened it from inside. She asked why he was there. He said there was no need to step out. He just needed to talk. After clearing his throat, the character asked about her schedule. Specifically, 3 days from now. Elnor repeated the date in confusion. A bespectacled girl suddenly scolded her about overdue books. The girl complained they were never even read. Elnor silenced her with a raised finger. Both stopped talking and listened closely. Dodd made his request from outside. He asked her to visit a place with him, just the two of them. Elnor asked where they were going. Before he finished, the glasses girl shouted the name. She revealed it was a famous dating spot. Elnor questioned his intention immediately. Campbell said he'd explain when they met. Her face flushed in response. Standing behind the door, Elnor hesitated. Then she asked if this was truly an invitation. A voice kept calling Elia beneath a wide blue sky and endless flowers. She finally turned her back and snapped for him to shut up. Calivan apologized, promising to stop teasing. Elia spun around, scratched and dirty, tears still in her eyes. She accused him of lying and called him out angrily. Pushing her down a hill was not a joke. Calivan awkwardly joked back, saying he'd attack next time properly. That only made her stomp harder in rage. He laughed, claiming he only wanted her to grow stronger. Elia shouted she didn't need his protection. Seeing her still upset, Calivan pulled out a small brown bag. He offered cookies from the Viscount's house. She leaned closer, suspicious, asking if he stole them. He insisted they were just leftovers. Elia ate while listening to his story. He might soon be promoted to squire. She asked what came after that. Calivan casually said he'd go to war. As sunlight faded behind the mountains, he spoke excitedly. New lands, new experiences, maybe even becoming a guard. Elia mocked him with puffed cheeks. Someone who bullies his sister couldn't be a guard. Calivan argued no one stays the same forever. The sky burned orange as he spoke. She asked if he might die in battle. He admitted it was possible, but unlikely. Elia angrily wished him bad luck, yet he only smiled and listened. She cursed him for never listening and always fighting. Still, he sat beside her quietly. The two siblings became silhouettes against the glowing hills. Calivan promised he'd always protect her. Time shifted, and Elia woke to her name being called. Still groggy, she opened the door. It was Dodd, standing awkwardly outside. He avoided her eyes and scratched his head. He apologized for earlier words and blamed his rural background. He even brought cookies from the kitchen. Elia surprised him by refusing the apology. They were friends, and that was that. As she turned away, the main character stopped her. He urgently asked for her help. Annoyed, she cursed him internally. But the scene shifted again. A slender hand wrote neatly across a report. Elnor sat upright, finishing her work. She reviewed teaching materials and club finances. Her assistant adjusted her glasses and continued. A transfer student from the Tribal Alliance was mentioned, exiled after a coup, seeking asylum. Her name was Leilu Garuda, strong, famous, and dangerous. An image of her fierce attack surfaced. Ruby eyes opened slowly. On the board, all items were checked but one. A saint from the Holy Empire was coming next term. Elnor quietly asked if she was arriving personally. The reply mentioned a full envoy. Books and papers surrounded Elnor as she leaned back. A saint and a tribal heir, too suspicious. She slammed her pen down in frustration. This academy was clearly planning something. Names flashed through her mind. Leilu, a holy maiden. Elia, then Dodd. She suddenly paused, confused by her concern. After all, he'd barely been here. Under the moonlit sky, Elnor finally spoke. She was simply in a bad mood. Everything returned to Campbell. He gazed upward, amazed by the observatory. The night sky left him smiling. Elnor frowned, questioning the timing. The main character held a controller, insisting it was necessary. This was the only way to align everything. He explained his plan with a massive device, a catapult taken from the treasury. Though the area was restricted, he had permission. Still, Elnor didn't understand his goal. Before she could ask more, Dodd spoke calmly. "Let's go." An explosion thundered through the night. Flames burst as he launched forward. Elia screamed midair, panicking, her face twisted in fear. Campbell shouted for her to focus, telling her to open her eyes. Space ripped apart, forming a red circular rift. They flew straight into it. The character raised a black card confidently. This was the spatial gate's location. He reassured her with a familiar grin, asking why she was scared. Elia slowly calmed under his voice. He warned it might be dangerous. Their silhouettes drifted deeper into distortion. Reality warped around them. The rift sealed behind them. Only a fading red streak remained in the dark sky. Silence returned once more. Elia shielded her eyes against the blinding light as they entered the strange space. She gritted her teeth, knowing time was running out. Campbell was thrilled, taking in the floating fragments around them. "This is interim space. Don't touch anything," he warned. He leaped upward, gliding across the drifting rocks. Elia grabbed a boulder and shouted at him angrily. "What are you doing?" she yelled. He floated ahead, carefree, saying gravity here was unstable. Elia frowned and demanded to know what he was searching for. He winked, saying she'd see soon, and urged her to jump. Waves of glowing bubbles drifted around them. Elia screamed, terrified she would fall to her death. She hid behind a rock, scanning the area in fear. Campbell insisted they were safe and told her to jump. Finally, she let go and fell through the air. Her body trembled, eyes squinting from the rush. She panicked, unsure if she was really falling. Her face twisted in terror as she flailed. Her mind flashed back to a memory of her brother calling her. "Elia! Elia!" echoed through the flames. In the burning chaos, she replied, "I'm here, brother." Calivan warned them to escape through the back door. Little Elia trembled, blood staining her clothes. She clutched a sharp axe and asked if they'd leave their parents. Calivan stood in front of her and snapped, "We must go. I'll handle mother and father." The fire intensified as he warned her about the apocalypse descendants. Elia clung to his coat, scared. Calivan turned back, tense, seeing her covered in blood. She broke down, screaming that their parents were already dead. She insisted they had to run together. He faced forward, blocking her path. He warned her it was more dangerous if she stayed with him. Before being her brother, he was a guard. He told her to run without thinking. He promised they'd meet again on the hill. Elia clung tighter to his coat as he urged her to answer. She cried and finally let go. Calivan's coat billowed as he told her to stay calm. "Run, little sister. I'll be right behind you." The memory ended abruptly. Dodd had grabbed her arm, scolding her. "Where is the gravity you mentioned?" he teased. He held her with one hand while clinging to the cliff. Elia, terrified, snapped that he should have warned her better. "She almost died," she said, shaking. Dodd stayed calm, reassuring her gently. "Relax, you'll get used to it. Look up." He pointed to their target. They sat on a rock ledge, watching the interim space. A strange rainbow-like object floated through the bubbles. The ghost of Gregory's pavilion hovered nearby. Dodd tossed a sack to Elia, leaving her confused. He grabbed one too, urging her to take it. The pavilion ghost began to get pulled into the bag. Elia panicked, asking what to do. Dodd quickly tied the bag shut. "We'll run soon. We'll use this then." She still didn't understand. He turned back excitedly, asking if she saw it. A dark shape appeared in the sky. Dodd slung the bag over his shoulder and floated. Elia stood at the edge, dazed, holding the bag. "It's just the sky," she muttered. Suddenly, darkness swallowed everything. Both froze as a monstrous mouth appeared. The creature lunged at them with razor teeth. Dodd's face tightened in fear. "It's an interim space monster. Time to leave," he shouted. Elia widened her eyes in panic. The monster lunged with blazing red eyes. Dodd shouted incoherently, trying to make it release. Elia gritted her teeth and opened the bag. She released its contents, the object inside pulsing. The danger came closer, teeth snapping. Waves of energy surged as they passed through. They landed hard on familiar ground. Dodd exhaled, relieved the timing worked. He asked with concern if she was hurt. Their hands stayed locked together. Elia pulled her hand away coldly. "Don't tell me this was planned," she said. Dodd grinned brightly. Of course it was. Everything went as planned. He explained the early grind tactic. Gregory's phantom was easy for a veteran player like him. Elia asked how he knew they'd come to the Interkingdom sector. Dodd froze, shocked. He assumed she wouldn't follow him. She set the bag down beside him, irritated. "I can trap it myself. You woke me up for this?" She turned away, leaving him. Dodd hesitated, then called out, "Thanks, and sorry for not telling you earlier." Suddenly, the system notification popped up. Elia's favorability rose to level 4. Dodd sat dumbfounded, still kneeling. He couldn't understand why her affection increased. He remembered their handhold in the interdimensional space. Her smile and flushed cheeks revealed her feelings. Atalanta finished training, sweat beading on her timeless face. A hair tie still hung from her mouth as she eyed Dodd suspiciously. She asked if the bag's contents were the thing they'd suspected. Campbell avoided a direct answer, calling it a spiritual entity. Atalanta tied back her damp hair and asked if it had entered the interrealm. Dodd nodded, holding up the black card, asking if that was why she gave it to him. She looked embarrassed and admitted she hadn't expected him to use it so soon. Then she asked why his hair was standing on end. His hair was frizzed from being struck by lightning. He explained Percy had zapped him. Ignoring the embarrassment, he moved to the main point. The spiritual matter they'd taken was being transported. Atalanta thought for a moment, then said Percy would be shocked. Even as a witch, she was timid. Dodd pointed to the brown bag and asked if it was enough. Atalanta replied that it was. He owed her another gift. She asked why he would give her something so valuable. He explained it was more like a request than a gift. He wanted her to fuse a spiritual entity into an item. Atalanta hesitated, warning it would awaken over time. She praised him for making such a bold choice. Dodd asked what the item should be. Before he could finish, Atalanta interrupted. She wanted to ask him something first. She stared at the young man as if reading his soul. Then she asked why he pushed himself to become so powerful. He hesitated and answered carefully. The demons in the plot were all Lord level, and he was stuck in the middle of it. He admitted the story centered around Elnor and Elia. He had no choice but to get involved. He couldn't bring himself to reveal the whole truth, so he turned the question back to her. He asked why she favored him so much. Atalanta looked him in the eye and asked what he meant. He listed the things she must know: the interdimensional realm, spiritual entities, how he defeated Elia, and monster control. He felt the Academy was manipulating him. He wondered what she wanted him to do with all this favor. Atalanta scolded him for his tone. She told him she didn't like being addressed that way. Then she confessed the real reason. "Because you're cute," she said bluntly. Dodd scratched his head, both embarrassed and confused. He hadn't told her anything, so why did she know? He realized the fused entity would awaken if the sync rate increased. That power would be useful from Chapter 2 onward. But first, he needed to finish Chapter 1, purge the imposter, and handle the Eye of Dusk incident. Suddenly, a voice called from behind. "He's here, Dodd." He turned and greeted her politely. "President, did I keep you waiting?" Elnor touched up her lipstick calmly. "Not long at all, about 6 hours." She stood before him in a rose-red dress, looking stunning. Dodd couldn't take his eyes off her. He realized she must have been waiting since before sunset. She tucked her hair behind her ear and smiled. She told him she hadn't been to a place like this in ages, so she found a quiet corner. She asked if it was his first time outside the academy. He shyly confirmed he was a freshman. She moved closer and teased him softly. "Why don't you look at me? This is the first time a girl has done this for you." Dodd was internally panicking. He thought, this feels like a date. Elnor suddenly grabbed his hand. "Come on, the line is long." They joined a noisy crowd complaining about the wait. The two held hands, surprised at the crowd size. Dodd asked if they could get inside. At the ticket booth, Talion shouted angrily, "Number 27, if you don't come, I'll cancel you." Then he called number 28. Dodd recognized him and asked why he was there. Talion said he was working part-time because his family wasn't supporting him. He also mentioned the student council was there. Elnor listened quietly as they talked. Talion asked about Dodd's relationship with the council president. Dodd froze, thinking, why am I walking with her? Is this a date? Elnor asked if a part-time worker could enter with council authority. Talion answered immediately, of course. Dodd noticed a necklace on Talion's neck. Talion showed it, saying it was from the Order of Purification. The system notified that the authority skill had been activated. Dodd warned him not to wear it today. Talion was confused, but agreed. Dodd realized he must redirect Marquis Riverback's goodwill toward him. The plot had changed after raising Elnor's and Elia's favor. There was no longer a chance to just eat and leave. Suddenly, a cane slammed down in front of him. A deep voice called out, acknowledging Elnor and Dodd. Dodd stared at the man and thought, I need to prepare a counter-move. A system alert appeared. Main quest. A villain is trying to lure you. Escape skillfully. Count Galder tapped his cane and politely asked to borrow Dodd for a moment. Elnor was startled and instantly refused. Before she finished, Campbell stepped in and said it was fine. Galder seized the chance and requested a private VIP room. As they left, the main hero whispered something to Elnor. She frowned, then looked at him in surprise. He assured her it wouldn't take long. Galder noted her closeness to Tristan's daughter and led Dodd away. Inside the private room, a glass of water sat before Dodd. Galder asked if he knew why he was summoned. Not wasting time, Campbell replied bluntly. He exposed the demon resurrection plan in detail. He explained the full moon chaos, assassins pinning knights, and monster releases. The goal was awakening demons through Tristan's bloodline. He calmly added that he'd already reported everything to the headmaster. Galder froze, shocked. Galder realized why the prophet was interested in him. The main hero looked harmless, but was dangerously sharp. Galder muttered that his men had already captured Tristan's daughter. Dodd calmly challenged him on that assumption. The door burst open as Elnor stormed in, sword drawn and soaked in blood. Galder stammered, unable to believe it. Moments earlier, cultists had tried to lure her away. She remembered Campbell's warning and prepared herself. A henchman mocked her grip and questioned her strength. She replied quietly that she would endure. Her aura suddenly exploded with murderous intent. Her eyes flashed crimson in the darkness. The man kept talking until Elnor grabbed his head. She slammed him into the table and knocked him out cold. The remaining men cursed and drew weapons. They reminded each other not to kill her. They rushed her all at once. Only her blood-red gaze answered them. Elnor fought alone, overwhelming them with terrifying speed. Their screams filled the room. Her sword flowed like music, claiming lives effortlessly. One by one, they fell without resistance. Blades shattered against her strikes. Anyone who faced her head-on was erased. She danced through the carnage, wiping out the entire squad. No one survived. Galder stared in disbelief and whispered, "Impossible." Dodd anxiously asked if the chairwoman was all right. She wiped the blood and nodded calmly. "I feel refreshed." A system alert appeared. Elnor affinity increased. Madness stabilized. She glanced at the main hero softly. Their outing had been completely ruined. She asked him to accompany her again someday. Another notification appeared. Special mission unlocked. You have caught Gideon's attention. Instead of joy, Campbell felt uneasy. Why would Elnor's father notice him now? Still, the mission wasn't over. Enraged, Galder produced an ancient gem. He snarled that he hadn't planned to use it. Seeing the stone, Dodd realized the danger. Dark essence wasn't supposed to appear yet. He shouted for Elnor to stop him. She turned too late. Galder swallowed the gem and whispered a prayer. "I accept the god's blessing." Outside, the street remained peaceful under the moon. Then a massive surge of dark energy erupted. The restaurant exploded into twisted ruins. Darkness swallowed everything. From the wreckage, a hand clawed upward. Campbell dragged his broken body free as mocking laughter echoed above. He squinted toward the sound. Galder hovered there, fully transformed into a demon. His voice twisted as he spoke of unfinished plans and profits. The main hero realized this world had gone completely mad. Based on game knowledge, demons absorbing essence gain borrowed powers. A demon appearing this early meant the difficulty had spiked. A system alert appeared. Mission: defeat the purifier. Excess casualties mean failure. Above them, Galder howled in ecstasy, drunk on power. The cleansing begins now. Dodd scanned the ruins and cursed. The problem wasn't just Galder. Cultists Elnor had defeated were rising again. Their bodies warped into demons with empty, savage eyes. They rushed him all at once. Reacting instantly, Campbell fired a blue beam that tore through them. He followed with a piercing thrust to finish the rest. Still, something felt wrong. Galder's laughter thundered again. The area had turned completely desolate. Talion arrived with the guildmaster visibly shaken. Questions spilled out non-stop. Dodd joked casually about his technique. Then he dropped the truth. Those monsters were once Talion's companions. Wearing the necklace would turn him next. Talion froze, trembling in horror. He asked if the Count had planned everything. The main hero nodded calmly. "If you want to avoid hell, obey me." Talion agreed without hesitation, but asked Dodd's plan. Campbell said he'd stop the Count and protect civilians. His resolve made Elnor stare in admiration. Even in disaster, he stayed steady. Dodd urged Talion to leave immediately. Knowing he'd only be in the way, Talion ran. Afterward, Elnor asked where the Marquis went. Dodd coughed and said he had a guess. Under the moon, mana beasts surged endlessly. The goal of demon worshippers never changed. They spread chaos to drag the demon realm into reality. There was only one possible target. Elsewhere, Galder hovered before a massive yellow barrier. He knew he couldn't destroy it completely. Still, damaging it would be enough. Dark energy compressed rapidly in his palm. The black sphere swelled, crushing the air with pressure. Fear rippled outward. Suddenly, Dodd's voice rang out behind him. "All right, don't move." Galder spun around, stunned. "How did you know? Are you a dragon?" Campbell smirked. "You're predictable. Power changes nothing." He explained the demon's mistake calmly. Leaving the sealed evil made his intentions obvious. Carried on Elnor's back, the main hero rushed forward. He wasn't afraid. He was relieved. "Now we don't have to search," he muttered. "Protect the princess. Kill them all," he whispered to Elnor, to survive no matter what. She nodded, resolve hardening. Trust like this still felt unfamiliar to her, but she vowed to be worthy of it. Calling out "Princess," Galdra failed to understand her intent. Elnor poured power into her blade. She launched herself midair at the demon. Steel and darkness collided violently. Below, Dodd sprinted toward the barrier. "Chairman, this way!" Galder noticed and hurled dark energy in rage. "Don't touch him!" He rained spear after spear from above. Yet Campbell dodged every strike. Galder's eyes widened in disbelief. "How are you avoiding all of it?" While he focused on Dodd, Elnor pressed her attack. Her blade nearly pierced his core. Regaining control, Galder countered hard. The collision blasted both of them away. Dark streams poured down like rain. Dodd defended desperately while running full speed. Galder chased, taunting him to fight properly. Elnor stayed close, refusing to let go. Irritation twisted his face. What an annoying princess! Forced to act, Galder released overwhelming power. The shockwave sent both flying. Energy gathered at his chest, glowing crimson. The pressure skyrocketed. Seeing Dodd down, Galder unleashed Shadow Fangs. A massive black projectile tore through the air. "I'll end you here!" he roared. The attack raced straight toward Dodd. The massive energy sphere began to fracture. Dodd's eyes widened as black shards burst toward the golden barrier. The fragments slammed into it, forcing a scream from the main hero. Elnor turned. Too late. Campbell took the full impact. The yellow shield shattered instantly. Pain twisted his face as his eyes rolled back. He was hurled from the sky, screaming. His body smashed into the ground with brutal force. Wounds covered him as he groaned helplessly. Watching from above, Galder laughed cruelly. "So there were more of you after all." Elnor stepped in front of Dodd without hesitation. "Get up, I'll hold him back." Seeing her resolve, the demon sneered. "You're both unbelievably stubborn." His mocking smile deepened. "Honestly, you two suit each other perfectly." Her mind froze for a moment. She remembered only taking, never giving. She recalled Dodd shielding her earlier, then fighting beside her against the traitor. Under the golden barrier, his punch flashed again in her memory. Wasn't it time to repay him? Elnor urged him to move. A system notice appeared. Life chain durability increased, health restored. She stepped forward, body tainted, sword sparking red. "I'll trust you until the very end." Galder watched, amused. "So the strategy meeting's done?" Without fear, Elnor looked up. "Tell me, do we look like a good match tonight?" The question stunned him into silence. Before he answered, a violent strike smashed into him. The blow sent Galder crashing into the ground. Dust erupted everywhere. A dark silhouette descended from the sky. Each strike thundered like an earthquake. Blood sprayed from Galder's mouth. "Damn you, Dodd!" Despite his wounds, he stood again. "The rats have all scattered." Elnor's eyes burned crimson. A sudden thought pierced her mind. "No." Galder roared and lunged at her. "You hit him, didn't you?" Elsewhere, the man-eaters fell one by one. Conrad and the others had wiped them out. He rested his sword and nodded. The chaos was nearly contained. Nearby, Elliot spoke with relief. "Good thing all the department heads showed up." Percy hovered, frowning. "Listening to Dodd saved us." Conrad fell silent, thinking deeply. If they hadn't come, this would have been far worse. Under the full moon, his words lingered. Could this really be coincidence? Back at the battlefield, Campbell staggered forward. Each step burned despite his recovery. Good. Talion placed it perfectly. A bell-like object caught Dodd's eye. He grabbed it like a lifeline. The pain was unbearable. Clutching hope, the main hero reached out. If Elnor could last just a bit longer. Her figure suddenly crossed his vision, but Galder stood over her fallen form. His words were merciless. Calling this brutal would be generous. Then his gaze snapped to Dodd. Cold sweat broke out instantly. "Well then, student Dodd." Dark mana gathered in his raised hand. "Any last tricks?" The black beam fired like a blade. It pierced Campbell's barely healed body. Blood sprayed anew. Galder's voice echoed. "You die here." Everything happened too fast. Elnor couldn't react in time. The world froze into black and white. Galder grinned at his success. A violent wind shook the trees. Pain surged, but power followed. The system reacted instantly. Critical enchantment activated. The main hero's eyes snapped open. Killing intent flared. The system spoke again. Target behavior shifting toward you. Sensing it, Dodd looked up sharply. Elnor was no longer the same. Demonic horns erupted from her head. The aura around Elnor twisted into something savage. At the mansion ruins, Campbell was suddenly impaled. A system alert flashed before his eyes. The threat assessment changed instantly. Elnor appeared as the direct danger, smiling grotesquely. She tilted her head and looked at him. A new system evaluation window opened. System functions began shutting down. One of his skills was forcibly removed. The system identified her true state. A fragment of the great demon was inhabiting Elnor. Her fatal charm activated automatically. Those with darker tendencies felt drawn to her. The stronger the malice, the stronger the pull. She stepped closer without hesitation. As her fingers nearly touched him, darkness surged. Black energy wrapped around both bodies. A strange symbol flared on Dodd's chest. The system labeled it a corruption sigil. The mark stunned the main hero, his wounds reversed before his eyes. Someone this powerful acting friendly felt wrong. Instinct screamed danger. Campbell dragged himself forward and opened the system. The future was unclear. Resources mattered more. A prompt appeared. Skill copying right. Available. Elnor's eerie smile never faded. Pressure crushed his mind like a vice. His flesh felt as if it were melting. Still, he endured. Using their connection, Dodd activated the skill. He chose something vital, for now and later. Her body flickered like a mirage. Reality struggled to hold her form. Before vanishing, she smiled warmly. "See you again. I'll be there." Golder struck without warning. Die. Lightning exploded from his hand. The forest split apart beneath it. He narrowed his eyes, searching below. A massive crater smoked in silence. The target was gone. Confusion crossed his face. Sensing danger, he twisted midair. A shadow tore through the sky. Dark lightning struck him head-on. An explosion swallowed his body. White smoke drifted across the forest. Nothing made sense. Suddenly, a figure descended and landed. The system screamed non-stop warnings. Lethal threat detected. Life or death level. X. Pandemonium's new king activated for 5 minutes. Absolute dominance over demon species granted. The monster sneered in disbelief. "A worm like you?" Cold intent flashed. It charged at full speed. Panic flickered in its eyes. The celestial messenger never warned it. Campbell's fist connected instantly. The blow sent it flying. The enemy crashed away helplessly. Silence followed. The main hero stepped forward. Round 2. His gaze sharpened. The next match starts now. Under the silent night sky, the monster lay still. Low, furious growls leaked from its throat. In the distance, a brutal figure approached. It was Dodd, radiating killing intent. The creature pushed itself upright and stared. Why him? Its eyes narrowed in disbelief. How could he wield a superior version of its own power? Blood spilled from its mouth as it steadied itself. Its legs trembled, but it stood. Years of struggle, it thought bitterly. And this nobody uses it effortlessly. Rage twisted its face. Unfair. Completely unfair. It slammed its foot into the ground. The system responded instantly. Dark operation activated. Demonic aura surged from the demon crystal. The black soul's blessing intensified. Its body hardened with monstrous resilience. The monster roared madly. "Die, Dodd!" Campbell didn't hesitate. Mana erupted as he charged forward. The creature surged to meet him. Power collided head-on. Shockwaves burst outward. Both figures were forced back. The main hero frowned. Red light flared in his eyes. A reflected blast revealed them again. They slid apart simultaneously. The monster thrust its arm forward. "Die, you bastard!" Instantly, Dodd activated a defense. Golden light wrapped around his body. The creature shouted in triumph. "Holy power!" Even witnessing it was shocking. How could it wield that too? Before it could react, Campbell moved. A kick smashed into its face. The impact sent it flying endlessly. Rocks shattered beneath its body. Screams echoed through the terrain. Confusion flashed across its eyes. A new surge of power arrived. From nowhere, Dodd clenched his fist and ascended. He appeared directly before it. The monster followed him in terror. Hatred burned in the hero's gaze. Suddenly, realization struck. The skill had expired. They crashed down onto a device below. Metal groaned under impact. The creature gasped. "What is this?" Campbell exhaled in relief. Good thing he hadn't returned it. He reached forward calmly and pressed the switch. The launcher fired instantly. The monster was hurled skyward. As it flew, it cursed loudly. "You damn bastard!" A gun barrel unfolded beneath it. Its eyes widened in horror. The main hero aimed upward. No final words? Panic consumed the monster. The weapon roared. A devastating blast erased it. Suspicion lingered until the end. Everything had been calculated, from the very start. The system chimed. Main mission complete. Rewards granted. Demon Crystal, Hero Shard, and points. 5,000. Dodd sat quietly, looking down. So there are many like this. The harder the fight, the greater the gain. At first, only one reward was possible. Now he held 2 story-breaking items, enough to bend fate. Atalanta stepped behind him. One of them gets used now. Campbell nodded. Elnor is safe. I'll hear everything about your encounter with the Grey Demon. Hearing that, Dodd froze. What do you mean? He asked sharply. She replied without hesitation. I already suspected it, but I'll ask directly. Are you involved with a demon? Elnor lay unconscious on the hospital bed. Monitors beeped steadily beside her. A nurse shouted anxiously. Is the transfusion done yet? Not yet, another replied. Her blood pressure is below 50. Tubes and cables covered her body. The room felt tense and fragile. Suddenly, her eyes fluttered open. A furious voice echoed nearby. Where's the priest? Why is he so late? Atalanta turned back toward Campbell. She began explaining calmly. One of the great demon's powers is corrosion. The Holy Kingdom and the Heresy Court will intervene. She looked straight at him. You're now at the center of this storm. You knew this would happen, she added. And you still went through with it. The main hero stayed silent. No excuses came. I gave up being a background extra long ago, he thought. Not after getting tangled with a demon. After a while, Dodd spoke quietly. At least, I'm still alive. Atalanta nodded slowly. Among pandemonium, the strongest is the gray demon. As expected, she continued, he chose Principal Elnor as his vessel. Campbell's eyes widened. You knew beforehand? She sighed lightly. Sorry about that. First, thank you, she said firmly. You protected the school and Elnor. Now listen carefully, she warned. What comes next is classified. His body shifted forward unconsciously. His head rested against her thigh. Atalanta glanced down briefly, then continued. When the last hero sacrificed himself, she said, the demon fragments scattered worldwide. If one fragment manifests, she added, the others are drawn toward it. The gray demon stirred yesterday, she said grimly. The rest will follow soon. Listening, Dodd recalled the game. Vessels always meant disaster. The red demon's host destroyed Gitch. He remembered vessels are random every run, he thought. Except Elnor and Elia, those are fixed. Atalanta frowned slightly. The Holy Nation already narrowed the candidates, and the Elnor is one of them. I'm gathering all vessels into this academy. Dodd frowned internally. Smart, but insanely dangerous. She continued calmly. There was once a vessel who fell in love. As a result, she said softly, the demon shard was erased. Love destroyed the seed of ruin. Her voice carried weight. The main hero grimaced. This sounds like a romance plot. Suddenly, her tone sharpened. The gray demon has feelings for you, Dodd. He froze. What? No way, he blurted. Panic flickered across his face. Atalanta placed a hand on his chest. I saw it clearly. It healed you, and even applauded you. Campbell tried to deny it. Maybe it just pitied me? She ignored that. The reason doesn't matter. An image flashed in her mind. Elnor reading seductively in the forest. The demon is overly friendly to you, she said. I've tested your judgment and resolve. So I'm asking you this. Go charm the vessels. Dodd shot up instantly. What? Are you insane? I'm not playing a dating sim, he shouted. Atalanta remained unfazed. I'll give you every resource, she said. I'll make it effortless. He shook his head frantically. That's not the problem, she reassured him calmly. Relax. All candidates are female, she added. This is a blessing. You even impressed the gray demon, she smiled. Winning their hearts will be easy, Dodd thought bitterly. If it were easy, I wouldn't be single. Her expression turned serious. No matter the cost, she said. You must charm them all, she declared, and erase every demon shard. The world depends on it. Her voice left no room for refusal. Campbell panicked. Wait, real love? With how many people? Strangely, another thought surfaced. This might actually be simpler. She didn't react. It won't be easy. Demon worshippers are hunting them, she warned, and the vessels themselves are monsters. Her eyes softened with sadness. Still, please save humanity. The main hero looked away. I want to log out so badly. He frowned and asked carefully. Headmistress, what if I fail? She answered flatly. I already explained it in episode 14. Humanity falls, she said. The world collapses. Demons rule everything. Her tone was absolute. Dodd cursed inwardly. I really hate those writers. Soft sunlight spilled through the window as Elnor gradually stirred awake. She rose slowly from the bed, her expression carrying a hint of fatigue. Glancing around, she inquired whether the battle had ended in victory. From the doorway came a voice chastising her for being startled like that, mentioning that someone had even skipped class the previous day to visit. The girl pushed the door open and stepped inside, noting that it was still early in the morning. Elnor looked over with mild disdain, remarking on the audacity of skipping school. Without warning, the girl jumped onto the bed and yanked the blanket, startling Elnor before exclaiming in shock at her altered appearance and asking how she had survived the fight. Elnor recalled the previous night and calmly asked about Dodd. Confused at first, the girl reminded her that Dodd had already been discharged from the hospital, explaining that he herself hadn't been seriously hurt, but Elnor had sustained severe injuries. Hearing this, Elnor inquired if she truly looked like a living corpse, realizing Dodd was unharmed, while she had been unconscious for several days. The girl, noticing Elnor's lingering concern, recounted how she had remained motionless for 2 days and threatened that if he didn't awaken, she would deal with him herself. Dodd, meanwhile, had taken a bouquet and reassured her that Elnor wasn't that weak, confident she would recover in a few days. Atlante, curious about this certainty, was told that Dodd's survival was proof enough. If someone like him could live, it explained why she would risk herself to protect him. Putting that thought aside, the girl handed Elnor a notebook and asked if she could still sign documents. Frustrated at still being the patient, she opened the notebook and began reading. There were updates about 2 major figures preparing to appear. First, St. Lucian, whose enrollment had been postponed from the next term to the coming week due to a scandal, drawing attention from both the Holy Kingdom and the heretical order. The second figure, initially a secret, was revealed as Lord Gideon. Elnor wasn't surprised and simply thought of him as her father. Meanwhile, somewhere on the vast grounds, a shadow observed the city through a window, admiring its liveliness. Lucian, noticing the glare of sunlight, instructed that the window be closed, expressing mild displeasure. The figure before him mused over the saint's apparent aversion to light, and the saint explained that spending youth in dim chapels could have that effect. When asked why he focused on gloomy matters, Lucian sighed and requested the guardian knight to close the window. He then expressed a desire to enjoy this brief moment of peace, though Lucian found the notion of a saint and demon worshipper sharing peace somewhat perplexing. Smiling, the observer remarked that he had expected their initial tension to have faded and hoped they had grown closer, but Lucian's gaze showed clear annoyance, emphasizing that his cooperation was purposeful, not born from friendship. Even so, when pressed about whether such distance was sufficient, Lucian replied that those controlling her chains and the forces suffocating his life were fundamentally alike, leaving others free to form their own judgments. She reflected that, at least, there was still someone he could protect, his beloved son. Dodd read his father Armin Campbell's letter, a mix of care and instructions. Take care of his health during the approaching summer, share the fruit sent along with friends, and avoid drawing attention while striving forward with his studies. His father mentioned the parent-teacher meeting that his household might miss due to harvest preparations, so Herman would attend in his stead. He was also reminded to behave quietly, not cause trouble, and even bring a girlfriend home during the break if there was one, hinting at seeing a grandchild someday. After finishing the letter, Dodd looked up at the young man before him and asked if he was Herman, a junior butler. Herman adjusted his glasses, smiling politely, assuring Dodd he could handle any instructions. Another man, with a brash attitude, placed a bunch of grapes before him, claiming they were sent for him. Dodd tasted one, asking if they were seedless, and the man confirmed their sweetness. Nearby students cast judgmental glances, whispering about Dodd's apparent aristocratic airs, now even involving a butler at school. Wiping his mouth, Dodd nudged the grapes toward Herman, instructing him to pretend they were close friends and finish the fruit. Herman, flustered, while Dodd remarked you'd probably stay an apprentice butler for life. Dodd's mind wandered to the system notifications. Elnor's intimacy phase had begun. The inherited curse would manifest in 7 days. Also, Gideon Tristan's involvement was imminent. He reminded himself to focus on immediate tasks rather than world peace and considered the upcoming Chapter 2 boss fight after the king's passing. He realized he needed to plan his moves for the boss fight, but then it hit him. He had never even met Gideon in the original. Now, what was he supposed to do? Observing Herman enjoying the heat, Dodd ignored the discomfort, preoccupied with strategies. He recalled the original sequence of events. Gideon's death had awakened the gray demon, but Dodd had triggered it earlier. Thoughts of the past mingled with current necessities, making him aware of how unpredictable the path ahead was. Other thoughts swirled in his mind. In the original timeline, Gideon was dead, distant from his daughter but still a father, and his death had sparked the gray demon's awakening. Now, having accidentally triggered it during the Chapter 1 boss fight, everything was thrown into disarray. Suddenly, a thought struck in someone's mind, wondering why Dodd looked so miserable and if it was because of someone else. He decided to meet Elnor's father, not to avoid him, but to gain any advantage if they met, hoping it might help against the Chapter 2 boss. Dodd saw Talion pinching his butler's cheek and, confused and irritated, borrowed the steward's sword for the day, and she happily get the honor to give him. Elnor watched, clearly amused. Though enrolled in theology, he realized after facing a demonic man that relying only on divine power left him vulnerable. He resolved to learn Tristan's swordsmanship, even the basics, and planned to observe Elnor's techniques to aid his future dealings with Gideon. Elnor, intrigued, agreed to help, allowing him to use her skills closely. Seeing Elnor drawing her sword, he realized this was the perfect opportunity to study her techniques as fully as possible, which would later help him cultivate a stronger relationship with Gideon. He felt that perhaps swordsmanship was now the only path left. Suddenly, a voice broke the moment, noting the rare sight of the student council president, usually busy with countless tasks, taking the time to step closer from afar to provide private tutoring. Elnor glanced over and acknowledged that Dodd had requested it. Immediately, she turned her attention toward him, assessing the difference between the president's expertise in single sword techniques and Dodd's twin sword style. He raised a hand with a forced smile, indicating that it did not matter. Single sword or twin swords would work. Elnor's eyes, filled with killing intent, made it clear that the type of sword was irrelevant. The key issue was who was teaching, Elia emphasizing that given her experience as a trainer, she was better suited to teach. At this, Elnor's expression darkened as she looked toward Elia. Observing the tension, he touched his sword and stepped forward cautiously. The two faced each other, exchanging careful words, while he remained confident that Tristan's swordsmanship had a flaw. Elia was curious. Dodd warned, "It's possible, only if you don't so much as lift a finger at me." Seeing the situation becoming unstable, Herman suggested that what was unfolding was essentially a duel. Elia held her blade out before her, her eyes burning with determination. The Tristan family's power could not dictate this fight. Across from her, Student Council President Elnor stood perfectly still, observing every move. Dodd and the others watched anxiously. Elia lunged forward, sword aimed with all her strength, testing her opponent. Elnor, seemingly unmoved, merely tilted her head, reading the strike without haste. Just as the blade neared her neck, Elnor reacted with precise timing, raising her own sword to block Elia's attack. The two clashed with a force and speed that left Elia momentarily stunned. Instinctively defensive, Elnor's gaze sharpened as she regained control, swinging her sword with extreme caution. Memories of her clan's demonic lineage and the devastation she had witnessed as a child surged in her mind, strengthening her resolve. Her feet slid back to gather momentum, flames igniting along her blade as she launched a fierce attack. Dodd and his steward watched in shock as sparks flew at incredible speed, leaving Dodd questioning whether such reflexes could belong to a human. When no one responded, Elnor stepped forward, admitting the situation had gone too far and taking responsibility before the president. She then turned to Elia and calmly evaluated her, stating that while her swordsmanship was competent, a warrior candidate had to cultivate more than technique alone. Those words finally broke Elia's stubborn resolve. She acknowledged her mistake without resistance, even though Herman had regained consciousness. Deep within the vast forest, Dodd steadied his thoughts. Seeing Elnor's condition made it clear. This was not a time for hesitation. He resolved to stake everything on becoming stronger. He had never intended to remain a pure swordsman. At that moment, she noticed Yuria nearby, calmly eating an apple. His voice reached her from a distance, casually commenting on her condition. She stared in astonishment as she recognized him, Yuria Greyhounder, the saint's biological sister, and realized she would have to seek his help. In the deadly silence, a strange voice echoed through the air. Deep down, Yuria still longed for someone to come and save her, or at least hoped for a companion. But that hope only deepened her suffering. She had to understand that hope was often just the prelude to despair. Suddenly calmer, she jolted awake, drenched in sweat, lying on the crisp white cloth. Fear still clung to her features. A shaft of light cutting through the gloom above. An apple rested in her hand, plucked slowly from the tree, its skin gleaming like a drop of blood. Her basket, now overflowing with red apples, symbolized fleeting comfort. Movement caught her eye. Dodd emerged, stepping carefully into her space, testing the boundaries of distance and intent. Yuria seized the moment and launched a swift chain attack. Dodd raised his sword and brought it down to block her strike. The tension in the air was palpable as their movements flowed with skill and precision. Yuria twirled her chain with practiced finesse, directing it with intent, while Dodd leaned to one side to dodge, his own expertise keeping him in the fight. Despite his efforts, Yuria refused to stop. Sliding backward, Dodd shoved the chain aside with his sword, desperate to stay out of reach. Suddenly, the chain snapped back toward him. Dodd fell back onto the floor, startled, a heavy sigh escaping as he stared at Yuria. She froze for a moment, surprised by the sight of him. His voice echoed as he brought meals, explaining he hadn't known her preferences. The food could last 2 or 3 days. Living alone, he said, she might feel lonely, but he sometimes came to keep her company. The thought stunned her, immediately replaced by the cold, relentless memory. She was doomed to be alone. A cursed sacrifice until death. Back in reality, Dodd urged her to eat and left. Yuria stared at the pile of food, numb, then slowly picked up a piece of bread, tossing her weapon aside. She held it like a treasure as tears of humiliation fell onto it. It didn't hurt, not at all. A system alert flashed, signaling critical attraction. The villain's favor had spiked, and Yuria Greyhounder's interest had reached phase 1. Rewards were available. Dodd shot upright, blinking in surprise. Just a few days with her, and she was already at this stage? He quickly scanned the rewards. The beer rank swordsman skill promised faster reflexes and sharper precision. Slowly, he opened the tap, thinking the effect combined with Struggle X would be formidable. Herman was still asleep, uselessly idle as usual. On the system board, Tristan's swordsmanship promised versatility. Any weapon, parry with minimal restriction, potential to bypass defenses. Dodd's mind raced. Nobles, royals, merchants, all attending today. He had trained rigorously with Yuria in preparation. He nudged his steward awake. Herman's eyes fluttered open, groggy. "It's time, young master," he muttered. Dodd fastened his cloak, excitement shining in his eyes. Today, impressing a single person was enough. The town bustled. An armored warrior offered the old man a steadier footing. He waved it off, content to stroll through the countryside. Observers whispered, realizing the Holy Empire's elite were present. His son, second-ranked, would compete in the Battle Royale. On stage, the MC addressed the crowd, praising Elefante Academy and announcing the upcoming event. The students who are present in attendance are called volunteer freshmen. The contest would be supervised by faculty and medics. Contestants entered the arena, the crowd cheering, while Dodd's nerves stirred. Gideon Tristan watched quietly from the stands. Herman encouraged him from below. Dodd steadied himself, remembering his past doubts. As the MC's announcement ended, all participants seized their weapons and attacked in a flurry. Talion targeted Dodd specifically, his strikes strange and focused, leaving Dodd wary but ready. The system suddenly warned of danger. From behind, Leilu appeared, kicking toward Dodd. Her smug grin and command to join the fight caught him off guard, forcing him to react instantly. Leilu Garda, second daughter of the Tribal Alliance chieftain, stepped forward with pride. Talion was under attack, eyes shut tight, body trembling in pain. Elia looked on, confused. Leilu moved with ruthless precision, her power clearly surpassing Elnor's. Talion sank to the ground, struggling to stay upright. Dodd watched silently, assessing her unexpected presence in such an event. Leilu advanced, striking with lightning speed. Talion attempted to block, but she suddenly attacks his stomach. Here's a fast-paced, dialogue-free rewrite of your passage, keeping all key events and tension intact. A system notification appeared, sharpening the swordsman's focus, boosting reflexes and accuracy. Dodd watched, astonished, as Leilu moved like lightning. Talion's eyes widened in terror, and he was blasted across the arena, blood streaming from his mouth. Spectators murmured in disbelief. Could a freshman wield such power? Leilu pressed forward, a storm of kicks and punches, testing every defense. Dodd held his ground, maintaining a defensive stance, calculating each move, and realizing survival required retreat. He slowly stepped down from the arena, while Leilu's fury simmered, her raw power and critical allure leaving an unmistakable mark. Here's a clean, fast-paced rewrite, no dialogues, no missing events, tight and to the point. Without warning, a plastic bag dropped over his head. When it was removed, he found himself in an unfamiliar room. A powerful presence questioned his connection to Leilu, causing immediate internal panic. Dodd forced himself upright, keeping his composure. He reflected briefly on his school life and the help he had received, then focused on the man before him, who observed calmly while drinking tea. The question surprised Dodd, making his eyes widen for a moment. He quickly calmed himself, knowing panic would ruin everything. He denied the claim, but the man immediately recognized the Tristan swordsmanship in his movements. Dodd understood that his techniques had been fully exposed. The pressure in the room intensified. The man's presence felt sharp and dangerous, like a blade ready to strike. Dodd carefully chose his response, making sure not to show fear. He explained that his training came from a sword emperor known even by high lords, a strange and powerful figure who had once approached his small baron family. Inside, Dodd silently begged to be believed as doubt lingered. A heavy silence followed. Dodd stayed composed, fully committed to his lie, knowing there was no turning back. Gideon slowly turned to look at Dodd. When Dodd confirmed that everything was done at his master's request, Gideon's expression darkened instantly. The weight of responsibility hung heavy in the air. Dodd accepted it without hesitation, even though he himself felt uncertain. Among all players, Dodd had encountered Elnor's father first. Rumors surrounded Gideon endlessly, but his strength was undeniable. Dodd understood the suspicion. Appearing suddenly and speaking boldly invited scrutiny. Gideon suddenly attacked. Dodd barely had time to react as killing intent filled the room. The wooden table and teacup split apart instantly. Dodd stood frozen in shock, unable to speak. Looking at the destroyed table, Dodd realized how hopeless it would be to learn from an opponent he couldn't even react to. Recalling the earlier fight, he understood that knight swordsmanship was indeed the Empire's strongest, famed for piercing dragon scales, but it was still incomplete. Dodd carefully pointed out that if the technique were truly perfected, even the movement itself would disappear. Gideon was momentarily shaken. Dodd mentioned the method to break the family curse, stating that something had to be cut. Back in the present, Dodd explained that rotational force was the key. The sword's path had to draw it out perfectly. Gideon closed his eyes in silence, absorbing the guidance. In truth, Dodd himself didn't fully understand it. He was simply repeating advice Gideon's future self had written for his past self. The rest depended entirely on Gideon. Suddenly, cracks spread across the ceiling as golden light burst into the room. Gideon looked up in shock, suspicion filling his eyes as he questioned Dodd's identity. Dodd remained calm, stating only that he wished for Gideon to become stronger. In his heart, he knew this would prevent Gideon's death and Elnor's corruption. As the Empire's executioner, Gideon handled the royal family's darkest tasks, living no better than a chained beast. System notifications appeared rapidly. Critical attraction increased. Villains with favorable disposition rose. Gifts were enhanced based on attraction. Dodd stared at the letter in disbelief. Even this could be enhanced. Watching the light through the window, Dodd realized the timing was perfect. This power would greatly support his upcoming plan. A while later, he closed the book, slightly nervous but satisfied. He smiled quietly. He had already taken responsibility for Gideon. No matter the difficulty, he would protect the Tristan family, every single one of them. Within every human, divine energy exists naturally. Unlike magic, it can be harnessed by anyone, though mastery takes time. The instructor scanned the classroom, frustrated by the growing number of empty seats, muttering about students and Riverback causing chaos. Dodd, curious, asked how one cultivates holy power, which only infuriated the lecturer further, claiming constant practice improves skill. Today's lesson ended, and the professor contemplated leaving the Empire entirely, resenting both students and the principal. A sudden knock interrupted him, and upon opening the door, a powerful force slammed him backward. Elnor stood there, cold and unyielding, while the professor protested being kicked. Bound to a chair, he panicked as Dodd explained they were detaining him, accusing him of spying and aiding demonic beasts. Letters linking him to the Marquis Riverback further incriminated him, yet he stubbornly denied any wrongdoing. Elnor demanded names of other spies, and when he refused, the professor faced an attack. Campbell healed one of the wounded with holy power, testing his proficiency. Panic overtook the professor as Dodd examined a folder revealing military information, prompting him to try snatching it back, but Elnor intervened violently, sending him crashing into a wall. The commotion drew Atlanta's attention, while papers drifted slowly to the floor. With the folder retrieved, Dodd instructed the night squad to handle him, yet the professor, still gasping, pleaded to learn holy power. Flashbacks of past encounters with Riverback crossed his mind as he recalled kneeling respectfully to a mysterious figure who warned him of fatal consequences if seen or remembered. Another voice ordered treatment, and Dodd acknowledged his holy power now extended to his soul core, grateful they caught the masquerading professor. Elnor commented that tormenting the old man wasn't for amusement, while Dodd noted her fit of madness had eased. She pressed further about Dodd meeting her father, but he remained silent, holding the keychain tightly as tension hung in the room. Elnor leaned closer, eyes sharp. "Why did you meet that person?" Campbell tensed, sweat forming. He stammered, claiming it happened but was never shared with anyone. Panic rose in Dodd as he forced himself to stay calm, concocting an excuse from a past sparring session. He explained the senior's move came out perfectly, and it was simply curiosity. Nothing serious. Elnor's suspicion lingered, but she shrugged, deciding it was none of her concern. Campbell reminded her that encounters with the Grand Duke might repeat, asserting he only acted to protect the senior, which caused him to question his own phrasing. Elnor lightly scolded him for being overly familiar, insisting he address her as guild leader. Herman, trailing behind, commented on Dodd's recent outings with Duchess Tristan, worrying it might draw attention. Dodd cheerfully clarified his circle was tiny, and these weren't exactly friends. He then noticed Herman's conspicuous ice cream and asked its origin. Herman explained it was a free giveaway for midterm encouragement. Dodd recalled the midterm survival exam, noting the Soul Linker and Holy Hero fragment were ready to awaken, and ordered Herman to sample the remaining flavors before reporting back. Alone, Dodd pondered awakening the Gregory Manor Phantom, reflecting that great spirits aid a player's growth, but appearances were random. He began the ritual. Alongside the cheering crowd, a cloaked warrior appeared, Lancer Frederick Tanker Yoan, familiar, yet uncertain. Suddenly, another revealed himself as Guardian of the Dawn, Caliban Chrysonex, triggering alarm. Elia's older brother had arrived. A ruined scene unfolded, Elia Chrysonex dazed amidst echoes calling for help. Dodd remembered the Scarlet Knight tragedy caused by the Chain Demon vessel, and how Caliban Chrysonex sacrificed himself to stop it, inspiring Elia to follow her brother's path as a demon slayer. Cheers rose, celebrating the first among warriors, as the instructor announced midterm exams. 4-person teams, survival ability prioritized against demonic beasts and devil worshippers. Caliban asked about Elia's progress, learning she was officially a warrior candidate. Caliban, amused at Elia's growth, expressed pride at seeing his sister mature. Dodd awkwardly confirmed his cooperation in resurrection efforts and promised discretion. Caliban's intuition urged him to trust Dodd with Elia's protection, which Dodd accepted, emphasizing his goal to prevent any deaths. Finally, Dodd addressed Elia, proposing a midterm team-up, leaving her frozen in surprise. Elia blinked in confusion, hesitating as she repeated his words, asking if he truly wanted to team up. Dodd answered openly that he genuinely hoped they could fight together. She reacted in surprise, reminding him he once said they weren't close, and Campbell admitted he'd already apologized for that. Suspicion crept in as she accused him of planning to boss her around again like before. Luca suddenly barged in, grinning, teasing that she studied Dodd nonstop just to beat him, even naming him constantly without realizing it. The main hero awkwardly smiled, glancing away, while Luca formally asked her to join their team. Before Luca could finish, he was punched into the ground, startling Trisha, yet he still muttered that it wasn't so bad. Elia, embarrassed, rubbed her neck and suggested growing together, even if it meant separating from old companions. Dodd silently agreed, knowing this was the protagonist's original party, while Elia winked and snapped her fingers, proposing they become a duo. Campbell immediately refused, stating firmly they needed a full team, not just 2. The scene shifted to the palace, where an astonished visitor thanked the headmaster for her generosity. Atalanta calmly replied, questioning why the saint brought a night guardian to Elefante. Credo answered smoothly, explaining this diplomatic mission was meant to expose the saint to the world, while Atalanta internally recalled her own suspicions about the saint being a demon vessel candidate. Credo admitted the decision was risky, hinting at the demonic artifact incident and the spy discovered in Elefante. Atalanta asked if such chaos endangered the saint, secretly treating it as bait. Credo coldly insisted danger was necessary, stating a true saint must face evil directly, or the task should pass to Lucia. He added that the saint would assist during the Academy's midterms. When pressed further, Credo withheld details, claiming everything served to purge corruption. Atalanta accused him of mockery, growing impatient with his manipulations. Credo calmly replied that voluntary participation would change everything, smiling gently before the projection faded. Left alone, Atalanta cursed him bitterly, calling him a venomous schemer. She removed her glasses, conflicted by the unequal conditions, realizing she too was using others for her goals. With a distant gaze, she condemned herself as no better. Elsewhere, Yuria washed cloth by the stream, staring ahead, troubled by Dodd's absence. The forest felt unbearably silent, amplifying her unease. Days had passed, and she clenched her lips, remembering how he always came at this hour. In her mind, only the masked Dodd remained, praising her and promising food. His cheerful voice echoed endlessly, slowly consuming her thoughts until she admitted she didn't need gifts. Only him. Silence swallowed her, as despair whispered that the world was bored of her. The thought dragged her toward emotional collapse. A cruel inner voice resurfaced, reminding her she chose this cursed path, one where anyone who approached must be cut down. The voice insisted she was destined to be alone forever, suffocating her spirit. Panic seized Yuria as she clutched her chest, gasping for breath. Questions echoed relentlessly. Who would she seek, and who would come to her? Tears welled as the voice mocked her weakness. Just as it threatened to erase the warmth Dodd gave her, a familiar voice broke through, asking why she was crying. It was the main hero, exhausted and clearly rushed, holding snacks and apologizing that the cookies weren't available. The moment she saw Dodd, all the darkness vanished, and Yuria ran toward him without hesitation, joy overflowing. The system indicator flashed as Yuria's interest surged straight from level 1 to 4. With trembling lips and tearful eyes, she asked if Dodd hated her or had grown tired of her. Before he could explain, Yuria suddenly leapt up, smiling brightly, her chain swinging as if pulled by instinct, knocking the cookies from his hands. The main hero froze, staring blankly at the torn snack bag as Yuria burst into tears, apologizing desperately and begging him not to hate her. Yuria kept apologizing through sobs as the scene abruptly shifted back to the academy grounds. A calm announcement echoed, declaring the start of Elfante's midterm exam, where students must reach the destination and freely compete for collars to score points. Elia stared at Dodd coldly, demanding explanations, while Campbell, out of breath from fleeing Yuria, begged to answer later. She refused, angrily pointing at Yuria being dragged along by a chain, calling the situation absurd and disturbing. Sweating profusely, Dodd tried to justify himself, admitting it looked awful from the outside, which only enraged her further. Yuria quickly took the blame, shyly claiming the method felt safer and more comfortable, leaving Elia completely stunned. Elia snapped, questioning where dignity had gone, while Caliban's spirit glared at Dodd, urging him to clarify things before proceeding. The main hero turned serious, declaring Elia must stay by his side and forbidding her from approaching Yuria. Elia frowned, calling it a twisted request, but Dodd insisted it was a strategic necessity and demanded trust. Elia's imagination ran wild for a moment, but she calmly warned him never to collar her, then ordered the group to move out. As they walked, she casually asked Yuria about her specialty, while Dodd shouted in despair for Yuria to stay away from Elia. Yuria immediately snapped back, refusing to move and calling him a pervert. Elsewhere, Talion staggered into view, scaring nearby animals as he gasped that he nearly died. He checked everyone's condition, relieved they were alive, while someone mocked him for losing to a Tribal Alliance transfer student. Talion snapped back sharply, claiming he saved them all by maintaining the protective barrier. Another student suggested targeting Dodd next, calling him easy prey, while others agreed eagerly. Unexpectedly, Talion refused, shocking them all, explaining he no longer hated Dodd. As his pendant swayed, Talion remarked that seeing stronger people had widened his perspective. On another battlefield, Riru stood over a fallen opponent, sneering that the world was full of worthless weaklings. Irritated, she prepared to crush the unconscious body, muttering curses against the Empire. A flash of light stopped her foot midair as Elnor arrived, blade blocking the strike. Riru smiled with excitement upon seeing Elnor, while Elnor countered with a swift slash, cracking the ground with thunderous force. Elnor coldly warned her that excessive violence wouldn't be tolerated, naming her openly. Riru's bloodshot eyes gleamed as she acknowledged the warning, thrilled by the challenge. Elnor reminded her that as supervisor, restraint was mandatory, earning only mocking laughter in response. She stated plainly that on a real battlefield, Riru would already be dead, issuing a final warning instead. Riru stepped closer, pressing into the blade, declaring that to her, this was a battlefield. She taunted Elnor mercilessly, mocking her hesitation and insulting Imperial women as weak and indecisive. Though Elnor remained outwardly calm, something dark stirred within her. Black lightning split the sky, freezing Riru as her father's words echoed in her mind about the vastness of the world. Accepting the truth with a grin, Riru thrilled at the power before her. With murderous excitement, Rirugarda leapt forward, launching her attack. Elnor stood motionless, her face icy as she tracked Riru's approach, her voice suddenly turning harsh as she activated forced teleportation. Riru's eyes had gone pitch black, blue pupils glowing as she smiled triumphantly and lifted her foot toward Elnor's face. As expected, space shimmered, and Elnor's body began to blur, making Riru's confident expression falter in confusion. In the next instant, Riru vanished, leaving only a sharp gust of wind and Elnor calmly standing with her sword lowered. Riru reappeared high above the hall and crashed onto the stone floor, groaning softly as pain shot through her body. Surrounded by battered students, she muttered bitterly, wondering if she'd really been eliminated just for talking back. Letting out a sigh, she accepted the rules, then abruptly froze as Elnor's image flashed vividly in her mind. This wasn't just a difference in skill. Elnor felt fundamentally different, like someone born beyond comparison. Chewing her nails, Riru replayed the moment, questioning what had triggered that brief killing intent. Was it when she mocked the Empire's hesitation, or when she spoke about lovers being taken without consequence? Nearby, the beaten students whispered nervously, afraid they'd be attacked again. Riru ignored them, legs spread casually as she grinned, clearly enjoying her dangerous conclusions. Elsewhere, Yuria slipped fully into killer mode, her eyes darkening as a system message appeared. Notification: Rirugarda has begun taking interest in you. The main hero ran ahead, muttering in confusion since he hadn't seen her even once since that day. Another alert followed immediately. Elnor, influenced by you, has unlocked Wrath of the Descending God. An explosion thundered behind him, bodies flying as chaos erupted. Yuria was the source. Elia gritted her teeth while retreating, snapping at Campbell and demanding to know what he was muttering. Behind them, Yuria rampaged wildly, curses echoing as she screamed Dodd's name with murderous fury. Ignoring the noise, Elia suggested stopping to explain the misunderstanding. Dodd shot her down instantly, grabbing Yuria's chain and dragging her away from the blast zone. He shouted that managing Yuria alone was already exhausting as he ran. Behind them, voices yelled that they were only rescuing Elia from a perverted scammer. Yuria curled up, wide-eyed and confused, looking absurdly innocent. Campbell sighed internally, realizing Elia's obsessive followers were now all targeting him. Before he could reach her, a blue-haired fanatic blocked the way alongside a stone golem. Grinning wildly, the man declared his admiration for Elliot Chrysanax since the first day. Seeing Elia tense, Dodd asked quietly if she really had this many fans. Nearby, a green-haired student whined about rescuing her and inviting her to a fancy dinner spot. Elia irritably replied that the place had already been destroyed. Campbell corrected her absent-mindedly, noting who actually wrecked it. Annoyed, Elia firmly stated she was never captured, and Dodd wasn't a swindler. The green-haired boy persisted, suggesting Dodd must be a pervert instead. Elia hesitantly raised her sword, prompting the main hero to tell her to just deny it. Panicking, the boy backed off, insisting he never meant to fight. Watching silently, Dodd realized this chaos was perfect for trait development. Activating his ring, he contacted Caliban Chrysanax, who was fast asleep. "Bro, wake up!" Campbell urged. Half asleep, Caliban responded lazily, asking what was wrong. Dodd asked him to appear just once, stressing the urgency. Caliban dismissed it as children fighting and refused to intervene. With a sigh, the main hero dropped his trump card. "Your sister is being stalked!" Instantly alert, Caliban erupted in fury, demanding to know who dared. A blinding light tore through the sky as Caliban descended, power radiating violently. Skill activated. World-scale presence. Buffs shared with nearby allies. Elia surged forward, shouting that fans like him weren't needed. The blue-haired man warned her that her sword would shatter against the golem. Instead, she sliced the stone monster clean in half. Shock froze everyone present as the golem collapsed. Yuria and the surrounding students stared in stunned silence. Dodd felt his heart leap. This was terrifyingly dangerous. Elia stood frozen, staring at her blade in disbelief. "How did I even do that?" Dodd exclaimed in excitement, calling it amazing, but Caliban quickly noted the flaw. The skill consumed holy power and would only last a few strikes. Before he could dwell on it, chaos erupted as several students charged forward together, unwilling to protect someone they despised, even if he was a hero candidate. Chains sliced through the air in rapid succession as Yuria retaliated, her movements fluid and merciless. She followed up with elegant kicks, leaving her attackers helpless on the ground. When it ended, Yuria apologized softly, claiming she had barely used any force. Elia snapped in frustration, accusing them of attacking without listening or understanding. Campbell lost his temper and shouted that he could never tolerate such behavior. Yuria then carved a long line across the ground and invoked Guardian Burst. Once again, their opponents were completely overwhelmed. Dodd stared in disbelief, muttering that it was fortunate all his stats were aligned with Caliban, was equally shocked, questioning how a child could grow so strong so fast. Elia relaxed as the system announced combat progress for a party member. Though shaken and disheveled, the main hero felt relieved that no one had been hurt. The system further reported an increase in attribute proficiency. Blushing slightly, Dodd claimed that he wasn't worried, then awkwardly changed the topic by asking where she went. Elia sighed to the side, already used to this situation. Privately, she admitted teaming up with instructor Dodd was far more interesting than expected. Elsewhere, another group celebrated their 9th necklace. Luca praised their teamwork, confident it was a perfect score for a freshman midterm. A brown-haired girl agreed, saying everything had gone smoothly. Trisha, however, complained that smooth didn't mean first place. Someone asked how many necklaces first place held. They were told second place had 15, causing Luca to scoff and question the map's accuracy. The brown-haired girl asked what was wrong. Trisha revealed second place wasn't a team, but a single person collecting 15 alone. Talion mentioned a name, Phainal Lipek, which no one recognized. They wondered how their cohort was filled with such monsters. When Trisha revealed first place had over 100, the entire team shouted in shock. At the same time, Dodd's group received a system alert detecting an abnormal wind attribute capable of reflecting damage. After traveling further, Campbell announced they had arrived. Staring at the cave, she asked whether claiming this spot would end the exam. He coolly asked why she was asking, reminding her she was the top student. She snapped back, calling him cruel. Uriah smiled quietly, sensing the bond forming through their bickering. Dodd recalled that this moment was originally a random event in the story. He wondered what horror awaited them this time. As the main hero surveyed the area, Elia cried out, saying this was excessive for an exam. Uriah stood frozen, speechless at the sight before her, whispering, "Sis." Lucian sat motionless in front of them. The system announced Main Quest, Chapter 2, The Young King. The objective was clear: suppress the owner's rage, stop the severance curse, and protect Lucian and Uriah Greyhounder. Dodd stepped closer cautiously, realizing Lucian alone powered the sacred energy of the entire plane. Uriah continued maintaining the necklace's blessing, even sustaining teleportation. Elia sensed something was wrong, knowing Elfante would never arrange this, yet she stayed silent. Elia declared she would save him immediately. A voice interrupted, ordering the student to stop. A flash of light appeared before Lucian as a warrior questioned whether they would obstruct a saint's voluntary sacrifice. The man revealed himself as Klein Garrison, the Holy Kingdom's high combat priest. Elia questioned, "Voluntary?" Klein Garrison's expression hardened, insisting the saint had chosen this path herself. Ignoring Lucian, he pointed his sword at Elia, explaining he respected her noble will and would not interfere. He asked if anyone had forced her, prompting Lucian to stammer that it was entirely his choice. Elia glared, incredulous that someone could voluntarily commit such horrors. Klein observed Lucian coldly, warning that defying a saint was tantamount to opposing the kingdom itself. Uriah's eyes widened at the gravity of his words, absorbing the weight of authority. Klein then called out to Elia Chrysanix, who stated she only wished to save the suffering. Klein questioned whether he should intervene if they persisted, his tone icy. Dodd gripped his sword, frowning as he realized he had encountered Saint Lucian, a key figure of the Holy Kingdom. He pondered the upper echelon's madness, especially the Pope, whose whims over demons mirrored his control over Atalanta. Campbell noted that Lucian and Uriah were mere instruments of a grand scheme, and the system seemed nudging rebellion. He resolved that, standing first, the Pope ought to rest, but Klein insisted she would wait for the second and third teams. Dodd guessed their rapid arrival might be tied to Elnor, recalling that a previous monster attack had drawn attention. The Purifier incident confirmed suspicions, making them believe Uriah's earlier rampage implicated her. Frowning, Dodd realized the Pope might intervene directly in Elfante if Uriah went out of control. Suddenly, a glove soared toward Klein, prompting him to demand an explanation. Lucian, alongside Elia and Dodd, explained it was a formal duel challenge in the Holy Kingdom, startling Uriah. He guided Elia to step aside and assist the saint, moving Saint toward the infirmary. Klein warned that any misstep could become a diplomatic incident, raising his sword in threat. Dodd calmly threatened to report Klein's actions to the saint, prompting the priest to question Campbell's rank. Dodd revealed himself as a minor provincial count, challenging Klein's intimidation with steady confidence. He glanced at Lucian, exhausted but resolute, as Klein introduced himself as a high priest constrained by protocol. Dodd smirked, pointing out the irony of drawing a sword while claiming he couldn't be challenged. He reminded Klein that Elia, a hero candidate, was present, forcing the stalemate into a delicate tension. To break it, Campbell boldly drew his sword, taunting Klein to make the first move. The priest responded by raising his blade, and Dodd seized the chance to strike beautifully and precisely. Klein reeled from the blow, sent flying backward as Uriah and others stared in astonishment. Atlantis' voice rang in his ear, asking what he intended and reminding him he had promised to act freely. She chided him for provoking the Holy Kingdom, warning that this was no ordinary fight but an official challenge. Dodd reassured her, producing a letter of exemption from House Tristan, claiming royal backing for his actions. Atlantis reminded him that the saint belonged to the Holy Kingdom, questioning the propriety of his sudden duel. Dodd calmly explained that securing demon vessels, particularly Uriah Greyhounder, was necessary, persuading her to 50% compliance. Atlanta noted Uriah's presence with Campbell was strategic, drawing the enemy's attention to dominate a crucial position. Campbell emphasized that half measures wouldn't enough. Demons must be contained first, diplomacy handled later. He reflected on Elnor's situation, asserting that personal relationships sometimes outweighed international concerns. Dodd affirmed he bore no grudge against Atlanta or the hero candidate, urging attention to school life and friendship instead. Thinking of Gideon, He admitted quietly that he had failed in maintaining bonds, brushing the thought aside. Atlantis voiced concern that news of the duel might draw the Pope personally, emphasizing his extreme danger. Dodd weighed Uria and Lucien as potential test subjects, recalling her warning, and mentally prepared for the consequences. Sunlight cut sharply through the dark room, falling on a small table with a single yellow rose in a vase. Lucien Greyhounder sat on the floor, one hand holding a cigarette, the other bracing against the ground, eyes fixed on the window. She blew out smoke lazily, giving off an air of indifference. A sudden knock made her stub the cigarette into the ashtray. "Come in," Lucien said. Uria entered, surprised, and pointed at Lucien. Lucien also straightened, frowning in shock. Uria whispered. "Sister?" She stepped closer, voice soft and trembling. Lucien lowered her gaze slowly, and Uria's face twisted in fear. Her voice stammered. Don't come closer." She instinctively raised her hand, trying to block Lucien. Thoughts raced. "Don't come near, sister." Lucien's expression was cold, her mind seeming to think only of the severing curse. Uria's face held confusion and fear as she watched the chain linked to the dagger shift slightly. When Lucien threw the knife aside, relief washed over her. Lucien swung the chain gently and said softly, "Because we are twins." A flight of stairs led down to the arena, packed with spectators. The announcer's voice echoed, "This match is simple. No death. Serious injuries end the fight. Otherwise, continue until surrender. Understand?" Dodd's face tensed, thinking of Uria's fragile state. Lucien's presence was crucial, or her mind would break under the curse. Atlanta stared at the arena, knowing how important the match was. Guards outside were tense, aware that the Holy Kingdom's interference with Lucien had to end. Pope Credo sat calmly, eagle emblem shining on his chest. Even without coming personally, Atlanta knew he would never miss a match like this. Klein gripped his sword, realizing mercy was no longer an option. He offered a smug warning, surrender early and avoid broken bones. "Listen carefully, young Campbell," he said. Herman watched from outside, nervously mimicking a warning with his hands. Dodd remained calm, replying, "Funny, I was thinking the same thing." Klein frowned, recalling advice not to use killing intent. A voice explained that too much killing intent stiffened the opponent's reactions, making attacks harder to land. Klein was shocked. Can such a thing really happen? Credo smiled, confirming he had seen it before, though he hadn't expected to witness it again. Klein's grip tightened, determination replacing pure killing intent. "I must erase their will completely." He called out, "Blessing!" and streams of light raced toward him. Swinging his sword with force, his cloak billowed and energy flared brilliantly. Klein's eyes narrowed, voice menacing, while Dodd calmly observed, ready to teach the arrogant noble a lesson. Dodd squinted and smiled faintly as Klein channeled power and charged. The blade's movement whipped Dodd's hair, and the system alerted him. Guidance, usable skills, divine fury. Both warriors focused, missing no movement of the other. A glowing orb appeared, and the arena air raged like a storm. Dodd realized the seal of the fallen heavens was reacting. Klein lowered his body and lunged, while Dodd remained upright, raising his sword. The blades clashed, sparks flying as if time froze, igniting the entire stands with excitement. Atlanta's eyes widened in amazement, and guards outside grew tense, panic spreading on their faces. Everything felt orchestrated, as if the Pope had planned it all. Credo's expression remained calm, watching the chaos with absolute control. The system's voice rang out, giving guidance as Dodd's eyes glowed with electric power, his strength surging. It listed usable skills, divine weapons, and even Elnor's wrath, surprising Klein at the arena. Dodd had forced Klein to lower his sword, and cracks appeared on the floor beneath them. The system continued its alerts as the fallen heaven seal began to react, drawing demonic energy toward it. Atalanta watched in shock, and even Pope Credo's calm expression betrayed surprise. Klein felt the pressure too, his mind racing. What is this overwhelming force? Yet he pressed on, swinging his sword while she moved gracefully through the air to meet him. Dodd looked up as the eerie sound faded, thoughts of discomfort running through him. Her hand touched Dodd's sword lightly, and dark power erupted, accompanied by a wicked laugh. "Return what you took." Credo's figure faded above, observing quietly as Klein continued attacking, thoughts tangled in confusion. While blocking blows, Dodd noted Klein's astonishment at how he had defended himself. Dropping his sword, Dodd shouted, warning that as long as he didn't kill Klein, it would be fine. The words were followed by a punch to the face, sending blood spraying from Klein's mouth. Dodd's gaze darkened, pupils glowing red, as he launched a full-force uppercut. Klein's body could not withstand it. He was sent flying, blood streaming freely, his descent uncontrolled. Credo chuckled calmly, impressed that Elfante's skill had surpassed expectations. A burst of magical energy shot out, catching Klein's body and halting his fall. Dodd asked for permission to speak as the victor, and Credo allowed it. Breathless, he declared that those harassing the saint should stop immediately. He growled, warning that any effort to challenge him belonged to him alone, a first and final warning. Amid the tension, someone shouted, asking Atalanta how Dodd dared act before the Pope. A long-bearded man smiled, pointing out that Dodd had dealt with troublesome students while harassing the saint. He identified the man as Hatton July, captain of the Blue Dragon clan, a notorious figure. The system's voice remarked that even villains would admire Dodd's recklessness. Someone nearby cautioned Hatton to watch his words, noting the Pope's safety was involved. Hatton taunted from below, daring anyone above to fight him if they were angry. Credo smiled, agreeing to the challenge without calling it a duel, ready to act. Atlanta, surprised, raised his hand, preparing a spell, noting Dodd's incredible skill and vicious nature. Klein's body glowed with golden energy, his power undeniable. Hatton's voice echoed again, mocking the Holy Kingdom for hesitation, but suddenly, all lights went out. Credo reappeared elsewhere, ordering, "Saras, deploy spies around Doug Campbell of Elfante." The animal girl holding coffee responded with a quick, "Understood." Credo's attention shifted, realizing that a single match had drawn the focus of 3 nations. He observed Dodd's actions carefully, noting how he resembled someone from the past in style and strategy. Dodd stood frozen for a moment, wondering if all the enemies had vanished. A voice announced clearly, "The winner is Dodd Campbell." The headmaster let out a small, relieved sound. Hatton stepped forward, smiling. "I like him. A true warrior. Take this." He handed Dodd a rare lion amulet necklace, boosting vitality and strength. Dodd took it cautiously. "Is this?" Hatton chuckled. "Visit the forge someday. You'll see." The mysterious power from before still lingered in Dodd's mind. Watching Hatton walk away, Dodd reflected, in the original story, this item came later. Now, I've been recognized by the Tribal Alliance's strongest madman. The headmaster suddenly spoke, asking, "Did you use the flask's power to win?" Dodd bowed slightly. "Yes, I just got lucky." The headmaster continued, warning that the Pope and Hatton likely noticed, and word would spread fast. "Many groups might try to approach you," she added, adjusting his glasses. Dodd remembered the Pope's brother and nodded. "I understand. Things will get louder from now on." A quiet night passed. The next morning, a system notification rang. Main quest completed. Accumulated blessings +1, seed of sin +1. Dodd checked. 4 seeds of crime had been collected so far. These could buy rare skills. He looked at one. Mind-seeing eye, usable once per day to view opponent stats. He purchased it successfully, thinking, the info from this skill cannot be faked. Perfect. Excited, Dodd wanted to test it but couldn't check Trisha or the professor. Elnor's face was sweaty from enhancement training nearby. Other students panicked, shouting, "Move aside if you don't want to get hurt." Dodd focused, thinking the priority was to gain information from Elnor or Elia first. He activated the mind-seeing eye. The system displayed Elnor Tristan's stats, Grey Demon Vessel, and then he sees Elnor stats. Good, pollution is low. She hasn't turned demon yet. Elnor suddenly turned, asking, "What are you doing here?" Dodd froze. "Vice President, how did you know?" Elnor explained, "I just felt a suspicious gaze. Now that we've met, I have something for you. The person you asked me to watch isn't ordinary." Dodd replied, "Oh, found him. I know his plan, but you should handle this yourself. The president's role isn't idle." Elnor crossed her arms, clearing her throat. "I'm sorry," Dodd reassured her. "First, well done. The opponent won't be easy, but my position as president helps." Elnor added, "I heard the Holy Kingdom is expanding, needing a diplomatic delegation. Have you heard?" Dodd admitted awkwardly, "Not sure yet. Everything will be clear soon." She handed a file showing the target's actions during the midterm exam. Dodd smiled sincerely. "Amazing. In the original story, I had to track this myself. You did very well, President. I'll repay you." He hugged Elnor, leaving her stunned. "That means he's in the clock tower now. I'm off," Dodd said, rushing inside the tower. He stayed there until 7 p.m., knowing he enrolled with the Saints. With that personality, Dodd would want fresh air, but also needed training. He climbed to the upper level, panting. "I should improve my physical strength more." Valkarthus noticed Dodd approaching. "Are you Dodd Campbell?" Dodd nodded, forcing his breath out. "Yes, you know me. Sit and catch your breath. The prophet told me to watch you closely," Valkarthus said. Dodd thought the prophet intervened directly, unlike the original story where he only watched. Valkarthus continued, "I've been waiting daily. I cannot initiate contact first. You understand? We are enemies, right?" Dodd narrowed his eyes, recalling the prophet's ordinary role in the original story. Valkarthus's gaze was cold. "I judged you will be my greatest obstacle. Answer me, Dodd Campbell. Will you stand in my way?" Dodd went on guard, thinking, he already knows me and my plans and still gives orders. This is the same method, but it's mine. Behind Varthus, a dark, terrifying creature appeared, its red eyes glowing with forbidden magic. Dodd listened carefully as Valkarthus asked if he truly intended to stand against him. Campbell's expression was serious, his mind weighing every word. The grand clock tower glowed under the sunset, casting long shadows across its majestic structure. Valkarthus asked how much Dodd knew about their plans, testing his understanding. Inside the hall, he admitted he knew Dodd had gathered valuable information and came fully aware of Valkarthus's identity. Bellus's golden eye gleamed as he spoke of turning everyone in the academy into undead to rule them. The clock tower signaled the approaching deadline as Bellus revealed the plan would happen in 3 days. A mysterious figure with orange hair and red eyes appeared, showing secret forces now watching Dodd. Valkarthus warned the seer was still studying Dodd's true nature and that he might face all the chosen. Dodd looked confused, asking why Valkarthus shared such secrets with an apparent enemy. Valkarthus introduced himself as the last king of Armada, revealing he fused his people into his body with forbidden magic. Dodd sharply reminded him they were enemies, and he shouldn't reveal unnecessary information. He clarified he wanted fairness, not to ruin Bellus's plans. Bellus smirked, questioning Dodd's idea of fairness, while reminding him he was at a disadvantage. Against the Dark Towers, Dodd deduced that the meeting was to see if he was truly brave. He calmly admitted that Valkarthus's guess was correct. He was not a coward. Dodd activated his insight vision, blue light glowing from his goggles, preparing to reveal more than courage. Valkarthus closed his eyes, smiling, daring Dodd to look at him fully with his special vision. Through the insight vision, Dodd saw the monstrous truth, a shadowy entity with countless glowing eyes and mouths, a mass of lives absorbed by forbidden magic. The system counted 2,134,423 forbidden arts active on Valkarthus's body, each one consuming a human life. A horrifying face emerged, one glowing eye and a stitched mouth showing the human cost of his power. Valkarthus opened his eyes, claiming such magic was hard to use in battle, downplaying its threat. Dodd stood firm, declaring he too wanted fairness, acknowledging the danger. Belus chuckled cynically as the masked figure loomed over Dodd, hinting at deeper motives. Valkarthus admitted he wanted to confirm the seer's judgment on Dodd's abilities. He looked at Dodd with mild disdain, saying Dodd was not much of an obstacle. Campbell clenched his fist, his resolve rising. He directly challenged Valkarthus, proposing a bet. Dodd would allow the plan to unfold in 3 days, but under one condition. He would stop Valkarthus with all his strength, starting a deadly 3-day countdown. Valkarthus gasped in surprise, impressed that Dodd wouldn't back down after seeing forbidden magic. Turning to a grand window, Valkarthus accepted the challenge. Well then, Dodd, facing forward, silently promised, "If I win," Valkarthus's face as he warned, "If Dodd loses, he becomes the another life consumed by forbidden arts." Valkarthus vanished through the window, leaving Dodd calling desperately. Dodd stood alone, fear and concern washing over him, thinking, "What if I lose?" Under the full moon, he scolded himself, remembering the most important rule: never imagine defeat. Elsewhere, Lucian smoked a cigarette, sword at her side, asking if Yuria had dressed yet. Yuria replied casually, "Yeah." She apologized playfully for teasing, then asked about Yuria's outfit. Blushed Yuria. Sitting in a white ruffled nightgown, Yuria admitted she had never worn anything like it before. Lucian offered her anything she wanted. Yuria was surprised and touched by the offer. Lucian, cigarette in hand, reflected on her past fears that Yuria's heart might have been broken by the severing curse. Relieved, she admitted a darker truth. She herself might be decaying inside. Lucian noticed the black necklace and chain on Yuria's neck. Suspicious. She widened her eyes, asking, "What is this?" Yuria knelt, explaining it was a gift from Lord Dodd to maintain their relationship. She added Dodd wouldn't meet her without the collar, asking if it suited her. Lucien remained silent, stunned by the revelation. Yuria cheerfully said she must wear it to see Dodd, seemingly unaware of its disturbing nature. Lucien clenched her teeth, rage building. Yuria pleaded, "Please don't misunderstand." Lucien's aura flared purple, furious, as she demanded to know where that Satan bastard was. Facing the tense mood, Dodd quickly waved his hands and tried to explain. He admitted the situation looked wrong, but insisted it was a misunderstanding. Lucien closed her eyes and listened as the main hero calmly explained himself. He said he kept distance from Yuria, only to avoid triggering her curse of severance. Campbell added that the chain was used only because it was the only option at that moment. There was no time to find something safer in such an emergency. Lucienne inhaled deeply, her eyes drifting as she revealed a painful truth. Yuria was her younger sister. She had found again after years years apart. Dodd nodded with a thumbs up, saying he understood the situation. Lucien suddenly cut him off, saying that was exactly the problem. She stared sharply at Dodd, questioning how he could know such private details. The main hero forced a smile, realizing he had spoken too freely. Lucian's anger over the chain slowly turned into deep suspicion. She questioned how a minor baron's son knew her past and defeated a holy knight alone. Dodd thought of the real reason, memories from the original game. Dodd said he learned it through the headmistress and couldn't speak openly. He firmly stated he stood on Lucian's and Uria's side as well. Lucian crushed her cigarette and called him by his full name, Dodd Campbell. After a long pause, she chose to let the matter rest for now. She admitted Dodd had helped her escape the Pope and protected Uria well. Both Dodd and Uria let out quiet sighs of relief. Lucien warned she still couldn't share everything and demanded full honesty later. She insisted on knowing Dodd's plans and how much he truly understood. Campbell then explained that Lucien and Uria were key pieces in the Pope's plan. The scene shifted to a dark laboratory called Project Homunculus. Lucian's title as saint was artificial. She had been created, not born. Her divine power was constructed, and Uria existed to support that system. The Pope planned to build a false paradise ruled by his twisted justice. Back in the present, Dodd warned the Pope would never stop chasing them. They was only waiting and loosening control temporarily. Lucian and Uria listened silently as Dodd urged them to prepare. Later, Lucian finally asked the question she feared most. Who are you really? Before Dodd could answer, a system alert appeared before him. Main quest. The Academy will be attacked in 3 days. Knowing the danger, Dodd guided everyone to a secured area. He revealed the heart of the star, a massive glowing crystal. He explained it was a divine relic protecting the entire academy. Inside the grand hall, Lucian questioned whether it would truly help. She outlined her plan to disguise Uria as a possessed victim. Using chains and a hood, they could enter the sanctuary unnoticed. Once inside, Dodd asked Uria to remove the hood. He then requested Lucien and Elia wait outside. Elia refused immediately, saying her duty was to protect the saint. Lucien agreed, admitting she still didn't fully trust Dodd. Standing before the heart of the star, Lucien explained its sacred nature. It was made of the same material as Uria's sword and must not be touched. Lucian smiled, claiming faith in the creator led Dodd here. Uria clasped her hands and prayed quietly. Dodd thanked Lucian for trusting him enough to bring him here. Lucian handed the chain to Elia, entrusting Uria to her care. Elia promised seriously to protect Uria with her life. Dodd explained the world's rules. Demons act freely, but angels cannot. Lucien stepped outside, asking Uria if she could protect herself. Uria replied with a soft smile. Elia blushed, feeling closer to becoming a true hero. She promised Uria she would not let anything happen. Suddenly, Dodd drew his sword and struck the heart of the star. The blow was powerful, yet left only a small scratch. Everyone froze in shock as Dodd's face turned serious. Outside, Lucian smoked quietly, deep in thought. She connected the clues surrounding Dodd's knowledge and actions. Though wary, she accepted there was a reason others trusted him. At that moment, a massive angel with white wings appeared above Dodd, radiating light, signaling that something world-shaking was about to begin. A scream of pure fear cut through the air as a blinding light burst open. Elia froze, her breath stuck, unable to believe what she was seeing. An angel had descended before them. Uria stood equally stunned. From above, a pink-haired angel slowly emerged, radiating an overwhelming sacred presence. Campbell immediately realized this was a rank A inverted angel, far beyond anything he had expected to face. A memory flashed through Campbell's mind, recalling an angel he had encountered before. Yet this presence felt completely different and far more oppressive. Elia felt her heart sink. She had assumed a low-rank angel would appear, never something this terrifyingly powerful. The main hero silently admitted the situation had spiraled far outside all predictions. The angel gazed down at them, her voice calm yet commanding. She seemed to understand everything without explanation. Elia could only sigh inwardly, reminded once again that anything tied to the heavenly realm was never predictable. The angel descended gently. She locked eyes with Dodd and spoke evenly. "I remember you." As she stepped closer, she added, "You have encountered my soldiers before." Campbell stiffened and asked in shock if she was the same angel from that time. The angel confirmed it without emotion, and Dodd immediately grew alert, sensing hostile intent. He accused her of coming to invade his mind and force rituals into his thoughts. She answered only with silence. According to ancient rules, angels could not act physically, so they punished through mental assaults instead. Normally, a player would be erased instantly, yet the main hero still stood. Something felt wrong. The angel suddenly spoke, saying she had been listening because his thoughts were unusual. A crushing pressure slammed into Dodd, forcing him to stumble as his sword fell from his hand. The angel reflected briefly, admitting she had intended only a warning at first. Her gaze turned cold as she accused him of committing deliberate blasphemy. Dodd snarled openly, daring her to finish whatever she had planned. She smiled faintly and agreed, believing he was ready. An invisible force struck him, and Dodd screamed as his consciousness was violently torn away. The world twisted, and the main hero found himself thrown into a strange, abstract space. He stood upon a floating platform, surrounded by massive cubes shaped like glowing circuit boards. Strangely, the pain vanished, leaving Campbell completely calm as he observed the environment. He quickly realized this place was his own mental domain. Inside the mental space, the angel was visibly confused, seeing nothing but emptiness. A mental realm should reflect morality, yet this one showed nothing at all. She stared at Dodd, arms crossed, unable to understand what she was witnessing. Doubt crept in. He was neither good nor evil, simply void. Regret followed as she wondered if handling this personally had been a mistake. Annoyance grew, and she thought the soldiers should have dealt with this instead. Biting her nails, she struggled with the question of how to punish someone like him. Meanwhile, the main hero remained calm, knowing this emptiness was exactly what he wanted. Back in reality, Dodd's body lay unconscious as his true plan progressed silently. Once a soul-linked space opened, something powerful would rush inside without hesitation. Yuria knelt helplessly, unable to understand what was happening before her. Suddenly, the mental space began to shift and darken. The angel gasped as Dodd revealed he had sealed his own mental domain. She declared it impossible, yet the cubes turned deep purple as dark veins spread rapidly. A foreign presence intruded, sending warning signals through the space. Campbell stared into the darkness with anticipation, whispering that it was coming. The angel searched the void but sensed nothing until it appeared behind her. A girl with long white hair, black horns, and a dangerous smile emerged, a white demon shard. The moment she appeared, a scythe-shaped sigil ignited on Dodd's chest. The angel spun around in horror, realizing a demon had entered her domain. Purple energy ribbons lashed out, binding the angel and covering her vision. A system window flashed. Deadly charm activated. The demon smiled in satisfaction as another notice appeared, confirming her interest in Dodd. The sigil on his chest grew sharper as he committed fully to the plan. The demon leaned close, whispering possessively and calling him her mate. The mark flared violently, symbolizing their dangerous bond. Her voice echoed endlessly, confessing she had waited countless ages for him. Dark ribbons wrapped around Campbell as he endured the overwhelming connection. Only one of the angel's eyes remained visible, filled with terror and disbelief. A final system window appeared, announcing the clash of power, temptation, and deadly charm. The white demon shard lunged forward, declaring her desire to possess him completely. Inside Dodd's spiritual domain, divine force, temptation, and the skill known as fatal attraction collided violently. The clash only made the white demon more desperate and hungry. The demon hovered above, staring down at Dodd bound beneath her, openly declaring that she wanted him. Confused but tense, Campbell questioned her words, unsure what she truly intended. The white demon drifted closer, her long tongue brushing across Dodd's cheek in a slow, deliberate motion. He clenched his jaw and endured, reminding himself that surrendering now would chain his soul forever. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the tension. An angel seized the demon by her hair and ordered her to stop at once. With brutal force, the angel yanked her back, throwing the demon off balance and drawing out a shrill scream. Turning sharply, the angel commanded Dodd to stop resisting and remain still. The main hero felt uneasy, wondering whether a normal angel could truly handle such a terrifying demon. Enraged by the interruption, the white demon snarled, grinding her teeth and warning the angel to stay out of her way. She lunged wildly, attacking the angel with raw fury. The angel answered instantly, driving a powerful punch straight into the demon's face. Both attacks landed cleanly, but it was clear the angel was beginning to lose ground. Moments later, the demon gathered her strength and struck back, sending the angel flying and scattering feathers through the air. The angel crashed into the distance, triggering a violent explosion behind her. Unlike the demon's madness, the angel merely clicked her tongue, irritation clear on her face. That reaction drove the white demon into a frenzy as she charged again, intent on tearing the angel apart. The moment she hit the ground, another explosion erupted from the impact. As the two clashed, Dodd lay still, eyes closed, deep in thought. Suddenly, he sprang to his feet and shouted at the demon, warning her not to lay another hand on the angel. He stepped forward boldly, drawing her attention away from the fight. "You want me, don't you?" Campbell called out. "Then look at me." Though restrained, the angel managed to remind him that she had ordered him to stay put. Dodd ignored the warning and smirked at the demon. "Release her now," he said lightly. "I'll deal with you later." He assured her they would meet again anyway, so she should listen. The white demon's eyes glowed red with interest as she asked if this was a promise. Dodd confirmed it calmly. Then he revealed his final threat, asking where a soul goes if it dies inside a spiritual realm. He declared that he would jump if she refused. The demon studied him, then burst into delighted laughter, amused by his boldness. When Dodd admitted he was threatening her, she laughed even harder. In the end, she accepted his terms and agreed to withdraw for now. Before vanishing, she reminded Dodd to keep his promise. He replied coldly with a single sound as her form faded away. Her voice lingered, promising she would return one day to claim his soul. Back in reality, Campbell smiled faintly, knowing everything had unfolded exactly as planned. Because of this, the angel now owed him a favor. Annoyed but bound by duty, the angel asked what he wanted in return. Dodd requested a star-forged iron ingot, a material of extreme rarity. Later, the main hero found Lucienne sitting quietly on a bench. She was shocked to hear he had received such an item directly from an angel. Dodd explained he would use it to forge something capable of weakening the severing curse. Elia stepped forward, asking whether a single ingot would truly be enough. Campbell reassured her, revealing he already possessed another. He explained that star-forged iron amplifies holy power, is nearly indestructible, and can only be damaged by itself or hell metal. Only then did Elia fully grasp the seriousness of their situation. To save the saint's sister, they had even been forced to confront an angel. Dodd confirmed that the true battle had not yet begun. When Elia asked which battle he meant, Elia glanced at Lucienne, sensing secrets still hidden. A system window appeared, announcing an upcoming attack at King's Boy Academy, District 1. All three girls demanded the truth so they could prepare as well. The main hero's expression hardened as he agreed to explain everything. The scene shifted to a vast academy dominated by an ancient clock tower. Dodd silently vowed that this school must be saved. The view passed over students living normal lives. Elnor carefully wrote notes with a quill. A purple-haired girl wearing goggles focused on welding. A blonde male student stood apart, his shadowed face full of mystery. Two other boys chatted confidently, convinced they would dominate tomorrow's outdoor trial. While students moved in groups, Campbell walked alone across the courtyard. A sudden voice asked if he was used to being alone. Dodd looked up and saw a masked woman dressed in black, her orange hair burning bright. When he asked who she was, she answered calmly, "I am the butterfly effect." Inside the grand hall, Dodd stood midway up the staircase, gazing down in silence. Below him stood a mysterious girl dressed completely in black. She spoke calmly, saying every bit of effort and obsession Dodd had shown was what led her here. Campbell frowned, confused by her words, muttering about a certain student before asking who she was. In the next instant, the girl appeared behind Campbell, saying she expected a master schemer, not someone so plain-looking. She mocked him further, wondering if his normal appearance was what made him dangerous. He searched his memory, wondering if such a character ever existed in the original story. Her insight disturbed him, as if she could see straight through his situation. Campbell demanded her identity loudly. The girl only smiled and called herself his most devoted admirer. Before he could react, she pulled him closer, looping an arm around him. Dodd flushed in embarrassment, clearly caught off guard. In fact, she despised them more than anyone. The main hero tried recalling demonic factions that might explain her origins, but failed. Suddenly, she revealed a white card, grinning as if she had won. She explained it was something she had just taken from Dodd. Calling it a key, she mocked him for leaving so many weak points exposed. Dodd panicked and shouted for her to return it. His heart raced, yet the system gave no warning at all. The girl casually shifted topics, insulting the female leads around Dodd. With sharp eyes, she declared that only she truly knew Dodd's value. Tossing the card upward, she sent it spinning, trailing white light. The card hovered, carrying an ominous meaning. Dodd froze when she said only a villain like her deserved to face him. As the card continued rising, she warned Dodd to prepare for a minor warlord. Sitting on the steps and staring skyward, she revealed shocking news. If Alcarthus invaded tomorrow, it would fail completely. But if the invasion happened today, could Dodd survive? The revelation shattered all of Campbell's plans. The girl smiled provocatively, saying she expected great things from him. Suddenly, massive cracks split the sky above the city. She smiled in delight at the chaos and whispered for Dodd to impress her. In contrast, inside the academy courtyard, Elia calmly enjoyed her meal. A blonde girl in clerical robes joined her, asking about her duties. They chatted at an outdoor table, speaking of private training courses. Elia admitted the academy buzzed with talk of her hero candidacy. She mentioned Elia's intense training and her supportive fan club. Elia was embarrassed to learn the fan club still existed. The conversation shifted to Dodd, praising how he handled a past disturbance. The girl teased Elia about growing closer to him. Elia became flustered, stumbling over her response. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the academy. Elia panicked as chaos spread among the trainees. Shouts rang out that the protective barrier had cracked. Some thought it was a drill, but others denied it urgently. Orders were shouted to evacuate, though many hesitated. Elsewhere, Riru continued sleeping peacefully. In another room, a horned red-haired girl focused on magic. Outside, the city's protective dome shattered like glass. Elia stared up up in horror, realizing demons would soon arrive. She whispered that this was never part of Dodd's plan. Atalanta rushed toward the rupture, moving without hesitation. Green light poured from her hands as she cast powerful magic. A massive beam struck the barrier, trying to delay collapse. Hovering above, Atalanta worried this was happening far too early. She wondered what explanation Dodd would give if this was planned. Beneath the broken sky, the clock tower loomed ominously. At its peak, a giant dark purple magic circle formed. The invasion gate fully opened. Dragons and grotesque monsters poured out endlessly. Below, people screamed as commanders shouted orders. Students were rushed indoors at all costs. A massive claw slammed into the ground. A colossal humanoid monster appeared, covered in red eyes and muscle. Among the chaos, a figure stepped forward, purple energy radiating. Valkarthus muttered about his enemy knowing the perfect timing. He smiled arrogantly and called out to Dodd. "Whatever tricks you prepared," he said, "don't keep me waiting." Monsters roared from every direction, filling the academy with fear. A male student screamed for help as a massive yellow beast with countless eyes charged at him. Before it could strike, a sharp blade flashed through the air. The monster was split apart, blood spraying across the ground. The one who acted was Professor Conrad, who rushed forward without hesitation. He shouted at the shaking student to calm down and ordered everyone inside immediately. A red-haired professor restrained the student, warning him not to act recklessly. Conrad's expression darkened as he sensed the situation worsening. Cracks spread across the academy's magic barrier, just as he feared. The threat was not only inside the school. Principal Atalanta was struggling outside to maintain the shield. Conrad worried that if the barrier fell, Decay Kings targeting Elefante would gather. Such energy could disturb the void itself. He wondered what choice the principal would be forced to make. Meanwhile, Talion shouted desperately, urging students to run faster. Monsters flooded every corridor and open space. Warning spells echoed, ordering evacuation instead of combat. The Academy Guard squads moved into position. The captain ordered one team to evacuate students. The second team was told to hold the line. The guards stood firm, facing the charging horde. Their courage was undeniable, but the enemy was overwhelming. The monsters crushed their formation with ease. One soldier was bitten and killed instantly. From a distance, Dodd Campbell witnessed everything. His eyes widened as he realized this was not his plan. Every calculation he made had failed. The main hero stood frozen, unable to process the chaos. The barrier was broken. Monsters everywhere. This scene should never have existed. Despair crept into Dodd's chest. If events had followed his script, this tragedy would not have happened. Then a voice called out his name. "Dodd Campbell!" A blood-stained sword swung through the air. A calm voice asked why he ignored evacuation orders. It was Elnor, the student council president. Her sharp eyes studied Dodd carefully. Campbell knew he had no time to hesitate. His gaze hardened with resolve. Elnor demanded to know why he was still here. The main hero continued calculating silently. There had to be a way forward. A bespectacled council member ran over, shouting for Elnor to assemble. She insisted the council was waiting. Elnor replied coldly, telling her to go ahead. Her eyes showed she had already decided. Dodd stepped forward urgently. "Trust me once," he said. "If you follow me, we can save this school." Behind them, the council member shouted again. Dodd listed past events he had resolved. He admitted he was strange but never reckless. The council member kept yelling at Elnor to return. Elnor stayed silent, head lowered. After a long pause, she sighed. She apologized quietly. Then she looked at Dodd. "This is my final trust," she said. "Lead." Relief flooded Campbell as they ran together. The council girl stood stunned, calling after them. She muttered bitterly as they disappeared. While running, Dodd explained the monsters came from the clock tower. Stronger enemies would appear soon. 2 people alone could not stop this. They needed help. Suddenly, cloaked figures blocked their path. Dodd asked for assistance. One replied coldly that they were envoys of the Holy Nation. Campbell recognized them instantly. There was no time for formalities. He accused them of being exorcist mages sent by the Pope. He knew they were monitoring him. He admitted provoking the Pope recently. The real delegation was likely with the professors. Turning to Elnor, Dodd explained their purpose. Then he shouted at the group. If he was their target, then he was also in danger. The masked woman, Vishla, answered coldly. "Isn't it enough if only you survive?" The words stunned Dodd. They were willing to let Elefante fall. Even survival meant losing the war. In desperation, Dodd called another name, Ceres's Dreamer. He claimed he knew where her desired item was. Far away, inside a recording studio, Ceres heard him. This was no game. Lives were real. Dodd shouted in despair, begging for help. He swore he would use any means to win, even if villains clung to him, even if it meant pain. He called her name again. Silence followed. Then Vishla received a signal. Ceres's voice spoke through her device. "You better be telling the truth." A system panel appeared before Dodd. Deadly charm. Activated. Master Assassin Ceres shows interest. His gamble succeeded. Ceres ordered Vishla to intervene. Sleek assassin gear was revealed beneath. They stepped forward, ready to fight. The massive beast snapped its jaws open, exposing rows of razor-sharp fangs. The air trembled violently, signaling an attack powerful enough to annihilate everyone in its path. Dodd's frustration was clear as he tried to grasp the situation, questioning how much Eleanor truly knew and how she had uncovered it. Eleanor remained composed, hinting that the consequences of words would have to be faced when the time came. Despite the tension, Dodd insisted that there was no time to waste. The clock tower had to be reached quickly, as the enemy waited above. Eleanor's sharp gaze challenged him, questioning whether he intended to face the threat alone. Dodd faltered, but Eleanor dismissed any excuses, calling out his tendency to speak in circles and hide his true intentions. He admitted that from the very beginning, sincerity had never been part of her words, yet she had her reasons for the attitude he despised, and that was why she stood by his side now. She urged him to focus on the task ahead, and he silently appreciated her understanding. Their brief moment of reflection was shattered when a monster appeared in a flash of terror. Dodd quickly realized it had to be lured away from the clock tower. Eleanor immediately engaged, cutting through the monster with her blade, striking with precise, controlled force. Dodd watched, questioning whether she had a plan to actually kill it. The monster reappeared behind her, forcing Dodd to warn her and guide her movements, while she continued to fight relentlessly. Time pressed on, and Dodd wrestled with leaving her behind, but Eleanor insisted that, if she fell, his priority should be saving Elefante. Her courage in the face of danger, even with her sword slightly damaged, reminded him of her resilience. She embodied strength, refusing to show weakness, a determination that seemed destined to shape her into a true leader. The battle raged on as Eleanor fought the monster again, striking successfully despite the spray of blood, each movement precise and deadly. Meanwhile, a distant whisper reminded of the fleeting beauty of youth, a contrast to the violent scene unfolding. Elsewhere, Dodd reached the clock tower and called out, drawing the attention of the villain. A challenge was made. A bet proposed, and Dodd positioned himself firmly, ready to see it through and claim victory. Dodd confronted the demon with open hostility, saying that he despised demons and those who worshipped them. Yet, beneath his hatred was a bitter truth. The demon had been bound in suffering for thousands of years. To Dodd, joining hands with the so-called prophet was an unforgivable choice. The demon, however, was not ignorant. It fully understood the certainty of its fate, a death without mercy. Dodd realized that he had no path forward except battle. Such an end demands a battle fought with full force. With that resolve, Dodd drew his sword. As the clash began, Dodd struggled to steady his thoughts. His mind raced, trying to recall the combat pattern. The first phase was simple: deflection and countering through Tristan's sword technique, but instead of continuing the fight head-on, the demon suddenly retreated. The unexpected retreat unsettled Dodd, leaving him momentarily disappointed by the lack of resolve. A flash of terror erupted, flames surged violently, and Dodd was blasted downward, crashing hard. Even then, he questioned whether the demon truly had the will to fight. The demon hesitated, claiming it had yet to reveal its true form, and insisting that once unleashed, it would be impossible to stop. Dodd silently acknowledged that courage, vowing to remember it. A girl appeared without warning, declaring that the demon worshipper would not succeed and that they would put an end to him. Lucien had come to save Dodd. Soon after, Yuria emerged as well, relieved to see him still alive. Elia followed, calmly praising Dodd for holding out on his own and teasing him about whether he had missed her any later, and he would not have survived. Yuria raised her blade and pointed it straight at the demon, her eyes sharp and unwavering. "Enough talk," she said coldly. On the other side, Elia says, "Campbell. So, shall we begin?" Dodd seemed lost in thought for a moment. Then suddenly, Dodd's face lit. He shouted up with excitement, "If everyone follows my plan, we can definitely win this!" Elia's focus never wavered as she warned, "Don't leave your positions. One mistake, and it's over." Yuria couldn't hide her smile. Fighting freely side by side with her sister Lucian was a feeling she had never known before. Suddenly, Dodd screamed, "Lasers incoming! Lucian, Elia, get ready to jump!" Instantly, the three girls assumed their positions, ready to strike. The demon fired a laser straight at Lucian, who calmly blocked it with a barrier. "Yuria, block the lasers too!" Dodd yelled. Elia rushed forward to attack, and in that moment, Lucian placed her hand forward, granting an attack buff. Power surged through Elia, making her strikes faster and heavier. The demon began charging another laser, but before it could fire, Elia's extremely rapid slashes cut through one of its tentacles. The demon's mind raced. "I understand the Saint, but these others, this is the first time I've faced fighters like them. No hesitation, no mistakes, perfect synchronization." Lucian smiled faintly at Yuria. "Good job," she said, then encouraged Elia. "Next time, go for an even bigger attack." Elia lifted her blade high, flames spiraling upward. "Dodd, you were right," she said confidently. We can win this. She released a massive fire attack, but the demon stood unharmed, laughing mockingly. Nearby, Atlanta repaired the barrier, thinking, 10 minutes have already passed. We only have 2 minutes left. Everything must be decided now. Dude ordered Elia to keep attacking, but the demon easily flung her aside, and Lucien's buffs faded as their limit was reached. Then, chains whirred through the air. Yuria swung them with precision, driving her blade straight into the demon's head. Lucien stepped forward, her voice calm, yet absolute. It's time to repent, Valkarthus. Above them, the clock tower shone brilliantly, Lucien's magical power flooding the sky.